All right, good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon session of the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing. We are about an hour behind schedule, so we will be resuming this afternoon with public hearing item number 2, and then moving to item 4 and continuing in order. So with that, I will turn it over to Chloe Halala to take us through the agenda this afternoon.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, jumping right into public hearing item number 2. This is LPC 24-04102, application for a certificate of appropriateness in the borough of Brooklyn, block 1089, lot 7, 701 8th Avenue, aka 703 to 709 8th Avenue, and 538 to 546 7th Street in the Park Slope Historic District Extension. This is a modern style religious school building designed by Joseph Matthew and built circa 1955. The application is to construct a rooftop play area with security netting and fencing.
Good afternoon. My name is Hilda Cohen from Matisse Architecture and Design. I'm here with Juan Matisse, and we are presenting for 701 8th Avenue. This is a small Catholic school that the proposal is for the rooftop outdoor classrooms and play area. And I refer to it as SSCA, St. Xavier Catholic Academy, if I fall into speak like that. The current building was built in 1955. This school provides education for nursery through 8th grade for children of all religions or no religion, and for children from more than 36 zip codes across Brooklyn. So this is a very diverse population within the school. It's located on 7th Street and 8th Avenue. Again, built in 1955. It's within the Park Slope Extended Historic District. We also included photos of the lot, which is in the center from before 1955, because one of the things that we focused on was the scale and continuity of the buildings directly around our building. So here are some views of the building. It is in keeping same height as these adjacent buildings, which is on 8th Avenue and then on 7th Street on the top. And so here is an initial rendering of our proposal. So the existing is on the left and the proposed is on the right. This is a view for the New York regions. It's not from the street elevation. But what it really does is it starts to tell us about our proposal. What we are doing is we're adding separated areas, active play. Sure. We're having active play, which is surrounded by these sort of translucent netting and posts in the middle, and then smaller areas of classrooms on the side. But all of it is pushed back from the street elevations so that we can have a mandated FDNY clear space. And a lot of that is to make sure that we have that scale and continuity is continuing through. One of the things is that we want to make sure that the DOB, we have already been approved for the occupancy at the rooftop, which is, we have 60 people. We've moved through and had that changed so that it's allows us to have the space. Also approved is the structural complicated means to have 100 pounds per square foot on this old historic building. So one of the things that's happening is we have a raised structural deck that goes from parapet wall to parapet wall, and we will accommodate that with the FDNY access with a set of stairs. We also have, as you can see, some the unused rooftop. We've got some bulkheads. All the bulkheads are remaining. We will be building these exhaust vents to allow us to have the function. But some of these bulkheads, one of them is a bit short on one side. We have to create steps to go over that as well. A little bit more about the existing conditions. We do have some items on the roof that are already there, 12-foot fence between the south side and the adjacent neighbor and our roof. Also, we have an antenna on top of that bulkhead, which, as you can see from some of the existing photos, is not visible. And that is how we're again treating this, moving everything back away from the street elevations so that the visibility of the rooftop playground is limited. These are renderings of sort of the idea of the play, the translucent netting above sort of the gray painted steel that allows us to have the structure for the netting, the posts, a reasonable height for this netting, so that the tallest points are 20 feet above that raised deck. And then visibility between our steel frame around our active play and then the classroom, so that 2 classrooms may be up at any time. And then if a child wants to be in a more contemplative space or a chess area and playing ball, they can do that. But the teachers can then see those visible actions between the functions.
As Hilda has mentioned, here's an enlarged plan of that same area, but you can notice a little bit more detail so you can get really a sense of the context. Here's the bulkhead that's on the avenue, so the kids will be able to come outside. There's a sort of receiving area that then allows you to take a landing and elevate yourself, because the structure does provide us with 2 risers that we need to access for the structure, or the superstructure that is underneath this platform, which is raised. And then on the other stair bulkhead, you come out, and this is the receiving area for the kids to line up either on the way up or on the way down, for the obvious safety issues of making sure you collected all of them and they're on their way downstairs or upstairs. There's a gardening area here for the kids to have some planters. There's a storage, an open storage area here for them to keep some of the extra supplies and things that they might need up on the roof. But the general open space is here on the platform. And then there's a small gate that allows you into the sort of chess area. And then there's a contemplation space out here. Again, these are open to the sky. The netting is really only over the large open space where the ball playing would take place, and hence the mast and the enclosure. But these are open to the sky, all these other peripheral areas. But the idea is to have these together work. And the FDNY passage along the perimeter serves to meet the code compliance, but also sets us back, which obviously, coming to our commissioners here, you note that that's part of the reason why we're set back as much as we are. So it's sort of like works for all of those different purposes.
Around 88.
The building is currently not accessible by ADA, and it doesn't have to be in order for this upgrade to take place. That's all been reviewed with the other agencies in the city. Here are your existing and proposed. Left is generally going to be the existing on the slides, and the proposed you're looking at on the right-hand side, of course, the taller portion. And as I was mentioning before, these lines are dimensional lines. So this is a non-construction elements. These are the open to the sky areas. And here's a cross-reference of that fence that's between the properties today. And then this is the enlarged version of the open play area in the center. Here are the avenue elevations. Existing is here. This is the bulkhead in the foreground. That's way back at the other end of the L shape, or the second stair bulkhead. And here's that tall fence and the flagpole that Hilda mentioned here. Relative to this elevation, the masts are tallest in the center as far as set back into the center of the site, if you will. And then we've lowered them towards the edges. As you can see, this is that FDNY access passage. And here's a sort of elevation looking at that same in the same orientation. But here you see the bulkhead and sort of the taller area. So the balls, as you can imagine, will be bouncing around within this area only. As far as materiality and other details, now we've enlarged the section through that taller space. And here's some reference images from an aesthetic standpoint. We did already proceed through the community board, received the approvals for that. So they're cognizant of the fact that the netting will be somewhat visible, but as transparent as we can make it with the netting for the balls. And we're purposely using netting instead of a rigid chain material to alleviate stresses on the structure. And it, of course, still serves the same purpose of utilitarianly speaking, keeping the children safe and the balls within our area. Here's a cross section of the lower ends to the taller mass. And this is to the property. The bulkhead here, we've actually designated one to be clad in a bluish color, aquamarine, another one's yellow orange, for the safety of the kids. So they always know that if the teacher says, hey, we're going to go walk to the blue staircase, we're dealing with pre-K small children. So these visual elements we thought are helpful, and those are only really visible on the interior sides of the building, of the rooftop play area. Another cross section, you can see the various elements. This is that tall enclosure. Here's our existing bulkhead, the fans that we mentioned earlier, and you sort of continue to see the elevational numbers. These are 20 feet above the platform, and that is our tallest point. And you will see a little bit more details for that in a second. And you can see some contextual and concept images of the type of environments that we've been creating around the perimeter. These are sightline studies showing from the 8th Avenue side and the two vantage points to get a sense of how this is set back. And here it is from the street side, where again, the same setback, and we've been very carefully crafting this to make sure that this is minimally visible. And Hilda will walk us through the mock-ups that were performed just 3 weeks ago, and you can walk through that because then you'll have a sense of the model's accuracy and how it's reflected in the orange mock-up.
This slide first represents how far back we're actually coming from that existing parapet. We're not changing anything at the parapet and not even scutters at the street elevations. So here is a sidewalk view from the intersection of 8th Avenue and 7th Street from across the street. One of the more visible spots that you can see, the existing is on the left and the rear of the proposed is on the right. And here describes the mock-up that we created. We created the vertical posts, sort of some at the front, some at the middle, and some at the back of the active play area. And these, as you can see, the snow that we had, these were the coldest week of the year, they could have frozen in place. But it really gives us a good understanding of the height. And it also included the guardrail at the 8th Avenue, where we had to step over the existing bulkhead to keep that FDNY mandated clear space. So here is an example of the top left is the existing photo. This was taken when there were still leaves on the tree from the same location with the mock-up. So you can see some of the posts within the mock-up. And what we've done in the rendering is we highlighted in red which posts were used for the mock-up. That's only a representation. These posts would not be red, they would be the gray. And then Park Slope is a slope. We went down 7th Street. So this is one of the last sort of visible areas of 7th Street. And much of the area is hidden in the buildings. But you can see on the top right, the posts, these are the 12-foot posts that are visible and highlighted in the rendering. And here's more of the mock-up. We've got the photos from the 7th Street, which are on the top left, and then more from 8th Avenue, incorporating all the way over 8th Avenue and 8th Street, which is the bottom right corner, and closer to the corner on the left. So it's the items that are visible are very limited. So when we started to think about how our playground was going to look from the street and what it was going to, how it was going to appear, we did want to look at some other playgrounds, rooftop playgrounds of small private schools that have been approved in the past through LPC. We went to St. Luke's School on Hudson Street, has a rooftop playground, and we found great application. You can find the permits on these online. So we found that the tallest elements are over 20 feet. So ours are 20 feet above our platform. These were taller than 20 feet, and they came straight up to the street elevations. And then two other examples. We have the City and Country School on the left, is on West 13th Street, where the protective fence comes up very close to the parapet. sort of a consistent element similar to our height. And then on the right is two-story. This is the Remsen building for the Packer Institute downtown Brooklyn, where the fence, also the protective fence that's necessary for any kind of rooftop playground is also very close to the fence, close to the parapet. And so, when we look at this, we really are very pleased with our presentation and with the proposal that we've worked with our clients for, taking into consideration what this is, what we're doing to this community, what these blocks look like, yet also making sure that this is really an opportunity for the space, an opportunity for the kids that go to the school.
Right, thank you. Do you have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Master.
I was just wondering what grades this encompasses for the school?
It's kindergarten through 8th grade.
All right, other questions?
Were you saying,
So just Commissioner Lutfi, just for the record.
sorry, but were you that just the smaller kids were going to be using it, or is everyone going to use it?
Ideally, it's everybody, but it's only 2 classes at a time. And the way, the 2 different bulkheads have sort of different lineup areas. That was their thought, that they would come up, have those lineup areas. And so that can, most likely they would be the same ages at the same time, but that's outside of it. But it's 2 classes maximum.
It is a fairly small school. There's only 2 classes per grade, and depending on how the kids shift, the tendency has been that there's less of the older kids because they move on to other schools. So it is primarily focused around the smaller kids.
Mm-hmm. All right, other questions? I just have a question about you have sort of 3 different heights for your poles, and was that to address visibility, and is the 20-foot sort of what is needed for proper play and ball area?
Absolutely. So when you look at the section, the lower section, 7th Street was the more visible area. So we felt that's where we would have as low as we could get. The 20 feet are in the center, the very center, which we felt would be the least visible. And yeah, it's a reasonable amount for basketball. We're incorporating there is a basketball hoop on one side, and then 16 feet, which allows us to just not be a huge cage. So we're really trying to be as reasonable as possible, but still allow for ball play.
Okay, because I noticed some of the examples you showed were also at 20 feet, and I wondered if there was a standard for play area that you were following.
High school gymnasiums have a clear dimension of about 17 or 18 feet. Of course, there's preferences for always to have a little bit more space so the balls don't constantly hit the ceiling, if you will. But the left side of the section at the bottom, as I mentioned, that's butting up against that property. And so therefore, we felt that we could get a little bit of extra height, and that's why the basketball hoop is placed at that end as well.
Okay.
It's a single hoop.
Okay. All right, let's see if we have any testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I will turn it to Gregory Collin to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. If you are in the meeting and you would like to provide testimony, please click the raise hand button now. I do not see any hand raised in our meeting, so I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you. All right, so if there are no final questions, commissioners, we can move to our discussion. So Commissioner Bland, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so this is a proposal for a rooftop play area, as we saw, which includes a fence that is set back to surround more of the active play area. I think many of the contemplative play areas are not visible by looking at this sort of fenced enclosure. So, and as the applicants pointed out, we have for other educational institutions allowed for rooftop play areas that are visible, particularly on buildings that are sort of institutional or of their own type and not typical of the district. So Commissioner Lutfi, would you like to start this one?
Sure.
This is my backyard. So I pass this building all the time. I happen to like it very much. And it is a very important institution, educational institution in the neighborhood and in the city. I think you've done a great job. I love the fact that set it back using the translucent netting, that you're doing everything possible to minimize the visibility and, the visibility, the greatest visibility over 8th. Still, that's significant. And certainly overall, the visibility is much less than what you've shown in some of the other examples which we've approved. So I can definitely approve this.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that the aesthetic taken here is to make something feel lighter and almost temporary in nature as opposed to permanently a part of this building that's below it. And efforts have been made back as much as possible. I'm just in a high school, so I know that the gym basketball volleyball runs 24 feet, and I think you guys have actually pushed it down. So I think it's totally appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner Master.
Yeah, I agree with the comments. It's appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson. Commissioner Goldblum
I agree, it's appropriate.
and Commissioner Chen.
I just want to say also, yes, of course, it's appropriate. But unfortunately, it's still almost a frontier that using roofs for recreation in the city is still a frontier to some degree. Less so all the time anyway. I think almost anything that does that in the way that Commissioner Chu just said in a seemingly temporary way, even though it's not temporary, should be appropriate. I think it's very well done. Better than some of your images that we've approved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I agree. It's appropriate.
Okay, so I think we all are in agreement here, and we can go ahead and make a motion to approve it. Commissioner Lefty, would you make the motion?
In the matter of docket 24-04102, 701 8th Avenue, aka 703-709 8th Avenue, 538-546 7th Street, Park Avenue Historic District, and art modern style religious school building designed by Joseph Matu and built in circa 1955. The application is to construct a rooftop play area with security netting and fencing. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Park Slope Historic District extension. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the presence of a play cage on the roof is consistent with typical features of the purpose-built school building typology, that the proposed lower fencing element and 2 bridges with handrails will be visible over the primary facades only from a distance, that the proposed netting will have a lighter and less intrusive enclosure than regular chain link fencing often seen on school building roofs, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural or historic character of the building or district.
And Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the
Chair Carroll.
aye?
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu. Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Commissioner Jefferson. Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 10 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, that's approved. So good luck and thank you for your patience as we navigated the schedule today. We appreciate that. All right. Next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 4, LPC 24-01815, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of block 553, lot 40, 121 Waverly Place in the Greenwich Village Historic District. This is a Greek revival style row house built in 1843. The application is to replace windows.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. My name is Darren Prentice of Borough Architects, and I'm here representing the co-op owners of 121 Waverly Place. Two of our owners are with us today. This is a application to replace the front windows on the subject property, which is a 4-story Greek revival townhouse circa 1843. What we see on this slide here is the 1940 tax photo. It indicates a former stoop and Greek revival enfrainment. In the lower left is the LPC designation photo circa sometime around 1963. My research indicated that around 1960, there was an application with the building department. It looks like that's when they probably took the stoop off and removed the enfrainment around this, what became a window later. They also added some plywood shutters that look like that now. This is the existing building. It needs a lot of help. So the co-op is undertaking an extensive facade restoration program, including the replacement of the existing windows. The items that we've applied for are being dealt with at staff level. They're not hearing related, but just for your information, we're going to be stripping the rest of the paint, repointing brick, refurbishing the brownstone rusticated base, removing the shutters entirely, restoring the the sheet metal lintels and sills and what needs to be done with the cornice, which is minor. The reason we're here today is because at staff level, the recommendation was made for the replacement of the windows to be 6/6 divided lights on 3 of the floors, and then on the parlor floor to be 9/9 divided lights. The co-op would prefer to keep the existing 1/1 configuration, which we know has been in place at least since 1940. The windows themselves, I'm going to go back a slide. The windows themselves that are in place, I'm assuming at least the parlor floor windows were probably from the 1960 renovation. They're in terrible condition. They're drafty. These are 11 feet tall, by the way. These are very, very tall windows. So the owners, all the owners in the building prefer the large expanses of glass. And so that's why we're here today. This is just our front elevation, existing and proposed. Really not much of a difference. We are doing some work at the front entry door to improve that. That's a staff level issue. But the main thing you can notice is the removal of the shutters. The details of the proposed windows, we're proposing a factory finished solid wood, Lepage window, insulated glass, all the energy code compliance, and the security, which is a big issue on the block right now. The profiles are well within the tolerances of the existing, within 1/2 inch all around. So it's a very high quality window with a high quality finish. And just, the main argument for this is essentially that this was a single row house. It was never part of a row. I should say townhouse because it wasn't part of a row. It's flanked by 2 larger buildings. This is a composite of 1940 tax photos, just showing I did an analysis of what the window configurations were along the block. There were a really wide variety of building types, mostly all residential, but just different styles, going from the early 1840s up until the 20th century. The only row on this block, there's these 3 houses here were a Greek revival row built at the same time. And then across the street, there was a group of 4. Believe it or not, they were federal style at one point. They've all been heavily modified. And I think that's sort of the nature of this block. It's been reinvented many times. And this building in particular, having lost its stoop, this is the current sort of north side of the street. You can just kind of see there that 3-unit or that 3-house row is somewhere in here, and some of them have put 6/6 windows in, but the majority of the windows on the block are a little bit of everything. Across the street, we have a whole series of casement windows with these artists loft. It's at the top roof. So we, going back to kind of the current configuration, this is the house between 2 larger buildings, and it was always sort of independent. It's lost most of its original detailing in terms of the dramatic sort of inflation of the Greek revival door. And in my presentation, the details say, done it again an analysis, kind of like 1940 window configurations versus the current. A lot of changes over time, from 1/1s to divided lights and then the other way. And then just highlighting where there were rows on the house. And our property is sort of in here, it's the subject property. So it was this sort of, it's one-off, if you will. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions? All right, is there anyone who would like to speak on this item here? Noting that there isn't, I'm going to turn to Gregory Collar to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of hands raised in the attendees meeting. So first we'll be hearing from John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society of New York. While we generally do not take any issue with the proposed changes to 121 Waverly Place, we do not agree with removing the distinctive shutters from the parlor floor windows. Although not the original shutters, they are part of 121's history, much like the 1/1 parlor floor windows. Those windows are being restored and maintained, and the shutters deserve the same treatment, as both were identified in the Greenwich Village Historic District Designation Report. The report says, "The charm of this Greek Revival brick townhouse of 1843 lies partly in its contrast with its neighbors and in the length of the parlor floor windows with tall shutters. Allowing the removal of the shutters would change the character of the building and disregard the designation report, which we feel would be the wrong decision." Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this proposal to be largely appropriate. That said, we note that the Greenwich Village Historic District Designation Report specifically refers to 121 Waverly's, quote, second-story floor-length windows and tall shutters. We believe the shutters should be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I am looking through our list of attendees now, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval. And we also received letters of recommendation for approval from 5 separate individuals. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I think we've heard support for your proposed windows. And I'm just confirming that the shutters are being reviewed at staff level.
Correct. They are noted in the report, but I think as was demonstrated by the applicant, they don't have the quality of older shutters that we might kind of make more of an effort to retain. And in many cases, even then, shutters are something that we've kind of allowed to come and go, particularly on buildings that may not have had them originally. But in this case, I think we didn't find them to be a significant feature despite being mentioned in the report.
Okay. All right.
And were they added?
They were added in
Not original.
probably the 1960.
Yeah, that's what I thought I heard. Yeah.
All right. So commissioners, are there any final questions? right, let's go ahead and move to our discussion. Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
second,
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed, and so we are just looking at the proposal for the 1/1 double hung windows. The applicant has shown that this block is varied and has many different building types and styles. And all have undergone many layers of change, which is actually very typical of this particular historic district where we even recognize different significant historic layers. So this building, as well as many of the others, had 1/1 even before the tax photo. And it is a standalone building, and so they are seeking to replace 1/1 with new wood double hung 1/1 windows. Commissioner Jefferson, would you like to start this one?
Sure. This is provable, but the issue is the shutter that's 1 foot 6 by 11 feet. I don't think I've ever seen anything that flat. It adds character to the building, but it wasn't there originally. So in terms of character now, it's wonderful.
Okay, all right, thank you. Commissioner Vogler?
I agree with Eduardo. I think that even though the front shutters are from the 60s, if there's evidence of there having been shutters there earlier, and if they're stylistically consistent with the house, then I would strongly urge them. If not mandating them, I would strongly urge them to put back better quality ones of a similar design.
Okay, and you're comfortable? The windows are fine. Commissioner Ginsburg?
The windows are fine, and my understanding is we're not talking about, we're not talking on the shutter.
That's right.
Yes.
Commissioner Chen?
Very long shutter.
Vice Chair Bland?
Windows appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Lutfi?
The windows are appropriate, and I do want to say, thank goodness that the facade of this building is being cleaned up. It's long overdue, and I'm sure when it's done, it's going to look beautiful.
Commissioner Chu?
Appropriate.
And Commissioner Master? Appropriate. And Commissioner Chapin?
yeah, I agree it's appropriate. And I also agree that if the staff verify that there were original shutters, it would be good for them to replace the shutters. But otherwise, I think it's just fine and very good that they're doing this restoration.
All right, so yes, I think we do want to commend you for the restoration and the care that you're going to be taking with the building. And so I think we have a consensus to approve the 1/1 double hung windows. So would you make that motion?
The shutters are not okay.
The shutters are not before us. The staff can continue.
In a matter of LPC that 24-01.5, Waverly Place, Village Historic District. I hope that the building style, scale, material, and details are aligned with features that contribute to the special architectural and historical character of the Greenwich Village Historic District. I recommend approval of the building that the proposed windows of the Waverly Place facade will match a historic windows in terms of material, operation, and detail. And the building is not part of a row, being separated from other row houses on the block by prior buildings. It has several alterations throughout its history, including the removal of its stoop and the installation of bread windows, hovers at the floor. Therefore, the continued use of one configuration with a black finish will not detract from the uniform fenestration and pattern streetscape and will be in keeping with the history of change of this facade. And the work will not detract from the special architectural historic character of the building or the Greenwich Village Historic District.
Thank you. And Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
Clark?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chopin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen. Aye. Commissioner Chu. Aye. Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson. Aye. Commissioner Lefty. Aye. Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 10 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, that's approved. Thank you. Move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 5, LPC 24-02998. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 610, lot 23, 180 Waverly Place in the Greenwich Village Historic District. This is a Greek revival style row house built in 1839, and the application is to replace windows, construct rooftop and rear yard additions, and alter the rear facade.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Mickey. I'm with Speedback Architects, and I'm going to be presenting a project at 180 Waverly Place. The application is to add a new stair and elevator bulkhead to a new roof terrace, and also to rework the rear facade to make a usable space and more uniform rear facade. We also propose to elongate the parlor level windows on the front facade. The location is in the Greenwich Village Historic District. The yellow dot shows our location. Here's an enlarged site plan. You can see we're on the corner of West 10th Street and Waverly Place, just 2 doors down. And the aerial view shows the block that it has and different types of buildings, some multifamily houses, along with some single family townhouses. Here's the historic tax lot photos. You can see it's a Greek revival style house built in 1839. It's 3-story brick above the stone basement. And on the left is the 176, 178 Waverly Place. And on the right is 182 Waverly Place. And this is the current condition. You can see 176, 178 on the left is currently under construction to combine that townhouse, and we're the house right next to that scaffolding. The front facade you can see on the left is the existing, on the right is the proposed. You can see on the parlor level, we proposed to elongate those to match the windows at 182 Waverly Place on the right side. So we will elongate the windows and also do the matching ironwork. Also in its elevation, you can see the bulkhead and the mechanical screen that we proposed, which is further back, so not visible from across the street. But here's a rendering view existing on the left, proposed on the right. So really what we want to point out here is the elongated windows. There'll be 4/4 with the matching ironwork to 182 Waverly. And here's enlargement of that window. So you can see there's an existing wall through AC below our window at 180 Waverly. So since there's already the masonry opening about the height that we need it to match the window at 182 Waverly. Also around the corner on the same block on West 10th Street, 158 and 156 West 10th Street also have elongated windows with ironwork. So there's precedent for that type of window on the block. Here's some images of the existing rear facade. And you can see there's been some additions over time. This tower in the rear, and then a volume that connects that tower to the main house. So it's not very usable space, and it's just not very uniform back there. So what we propose, actually, here's also images of the interior block. And what we want to point out here, this is the upper left image is from the rooftop of 180 Waverly Place, which really gives a good understanding of that in a block, that there's not much uniformity that exists. What you look back to is just a tall brick wall of a parking garage. To the north, the back of the houses at West 10th Street are just sort of coplanar flat houses with 1 or 2 windows per floor. And on the left, you can see the taller multi-family home buildings. So this is the proposed on the right and the existing on the left. So on the left 3D view, you can see those 3 sort of volumes of additions over time. And our proposal is to uniform the rear facade, align it with the work that is being done at 176 Waverly Place on the right side. We also propose to flatten out the roof and make a roof terrace on the top. Right now, it's only like 5'10" ceiling height at the back of the building, so it's not very usable. We also adding the elevator and the stair up to the roof terrace creates this bulkhead condition. So here you can see the rear elevations. The left is existing, the right is proposed. The bulkhead material we propose to be a gray stucco. The addition at 176 Waverly to the right is a gray zinc panel, so it'll have a similar color palette to that. We also propose at the third floor to maintain the rhythm of the 3 punched openings. Because of our elevator location on the far right, that is where the elevator shaft is on the 3rd floor. So rather than a window there, we're proposing a recess in the brick to sort of maintain the look of the 3 punched openings. And the rear facade will be red brick. Here's 2 3D views, one from sort of the front view and then one from the rear view. And this is showing a little bit more of the 176 proposed addition, which is combining those 2 townhouses. I just want to point out here, you can see that our mechanical screen isn't any taller than the mechanical screen that's being done on that property. You can also see they've sort of shifted their 4th floor addition so that there's a recess between, I think it's 176 and 178. And then we're aligning more with the 176 so that it comes back out so you can read those as different volumes. Here's the sections. On the left is the existing section. You can see the sloped roof and the ceiling height in the back is very low. And then on the right is the proposed section. So you can see the location of the elevator shaft all the way through the building when it comes to the 3rd floor is at the rear of the building. We do propose a cornice there to break up the volume, and it's also a different material of the bulkhead. And something else to point out here, you can see the blue dashed line on the proposed section is where the existing is. So we're actually bringing the rear facade in. We're not increasing the floor area at all. We're just reconfiguring the existing floor area. So this way it gives us the 30-foot rear yard. Here's the sight line section. You can see you can't see the bulkhead or the mechanical screen from directly across the street. You can see just a tip of the railing that we're proposing at the roof terrace. We also are extending the masonry around the chimneys, but at a height that you can't see from across the street. By code, the chimney flues do need to be raised 3 foot above the bulkhead roof line. So you will see the chimney flue extension. The new construction, as mentioned, for the stair bulkhead is going to be a traditional 3-coat stucco system, and the rear facade is the brick. It's a steel structure with the brick facade. Here's the existing floor plans just for reference. You can see there is a cellar below the basement, but we aren't proposing to dig that down anymore. So we're maintaining the cellar as is. And here's the proposed plans just to show the location of the elevator. We did try several iterations of where it could be located, but the most efficient and sort of best use of the interior space was tucked behind the stair to maintain the sort of circulation in the same area. And you can see where it is in the roof plan at the bulkhead at the back of the building. We did do a mock-up, so we are showing raising the chimneys and also the bulkhead and mechanical screen. From the southern approach, the mock-up is not visible at all. You can see, but so directly across the street, you can see a very tip of the railing and also the chimney flue extension. Where it does become a little bit visible is around the corner on West 10th and Waverly Place. So you can see in 3A, we've done an enlarged view above. So we've outlined sort of where you can see through the tree of the bulkhead itself. And then on the right side is the chimney extension. And I just want to point out here too, because our bulkhead would be touching the 176 Waverly Place, in gray we hatched where theirs would be. And then when you take a few steps further down the road on 3B, you don't see the bulkhead as much as you did on the right side. You see that tiny little orange triangle appearing on the right side of the skylight. And I think that is part of the mechanical screen. So it would be gray louvers sort of blending in with the skylight. And on the very corner, you see some of the railing, but you don't see the bulkhead at all. And you see the chimney flue.
So the green.
The flues, yeah. From the northern approach, further back, further north on Waverly Place, You do see, this is the mechanical screen, so 4A, and then the enlarged version is above that. So that would just be the mechanical reverse screen that you see appearing behind the corner building's chimney. And then 4B, what you're seeing there through the tree is just a little bit of the chimney itself, which would be masonry chimney, and then the chimney flues. And then you continue to see that chimney further up Waverly Place, even past 7th Avenue. The lower images are what you really see in the enlarged zoomed in pictures above through the trees are the chimney. So in conclusion, we just want to thank you for the time, and just to reiterate that the bulkhead that we're doing on the top doesn't extend past the neighbor's bulkhead. It's not visible from directly across the street, and there are precedent for the windows at the parlor level.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have questions? Commissioner Jefferson?
I have a question on drawing 11. In the rear facade, the fourth floor, is it? I think it's the fourth floor.
Page 11, if you can move back to that.
Well, the bulkhead is on the rear facade.
Okay, it's page 11. Okay, you see the top floor, which you're actually changing the top floor, the windows on the top floor, right? Underneath the post, correct?
Yeah, the third floor
So the thing
is
is,
top one, and the bulkhead is above that.
you're changing the windows there and cutting off a piece of the existing project at some point. Okay, I got it.
And in terms of that elevator bulkhead, are you limited by interior conditions from pushing it further into the building?
Yeah, we played with a lot of different iterations, and it starts to decrease the room sizes and the circulation, just not as usable or efficient space.
All right. Yes, Commissioner Master.
Yeah, I'm looking at slide 25. And if I look at the railings on the front facade, are we aligning all front railings to the neighboring building?
Yeah, and they're showing it right behind the bulk.
So they're both aligned and they're both the same material?
Yeah, theirs has a slightly like curved shape, or we're just proposing.
But they're both flat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
So looking at the plans, the stair next to the elevator bulkhead is new, correct?
Yes.
So it would be possible to slide that stair a few feet, there's no north arrow, down towards the front to move the elevator bulkhead.
Yeah, we've tried to play with that. As you can see, it starts to impact the front bedrooms. And because you need to circulate around the stair, like on the second floor, for instance, and also the primary bedroom on the third floor gets affected. And the living room, kitchen, and even on the basement level, it starts to impact the theater, which is already, by adding the elevator, was decreased. So it does have a negative impact on the plan to move it down.
By code, are you required to have the elevator to go to the roof?
By code, no, since it's a single family house, you don't need the elevator at all. I think once.
If you drop the elevator to go to the top floor, would that allow you to modify the bulkhead above?
The bulkhead itself, yes, but on the third floor, it would still be at the rear of the building.
Right.
The third floor.
But you would have to have the bulkhead, which is on the roof, align with the rear facade.
Right, it can be stepped in. I think the idea was once you're adding an elevator to be able to utilize it all the way up to your roof terrace is an ideal situation.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Let's see if we have public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I'll turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I see a few hands raised in our attendees list. The first person will be hearing from is Chloe Gregoire from the Village Preservation. Chloe Gregoire, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good day, Commissioners. My name is Chloe Gregoire, and I'm speaking on behalf of Village Preservation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Village Preservation feels the proposed elongated parlor floor windows throw off the proportions of this primary facade. The existing masonry openings are more suitable, and their 6/6 double-hung windows consistent with the rest of the facade's fenestration, and that of the 2 neighboring buildings to the south within this row should remain. We also find the proposed modifications to the original top floor of the rear facade to be inappropriate. We ask that the top floor and its 3 historic window openings remain intact, and that the proposed design for the rooftop addition and related modifications at the roof be adjusted in order to accommodate the retention of these historic features. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society, New York. The proposed work at 180 Waverly has several different components which require different responses. The VSNY supports the proposed alterations to the parlor floor windows. Much of the brick masonry under the right window has already been removed. Also, the size of the new openings will be similar to parlor floor windows on many mid-19th century historic row houses and will match the early window alteration at the house adjacent twin at number 182. However, we initially questioned the proposal to match the 4/4 parlor floor windows configuration at the adjacent house. But because the 2 houses were built as a pair, we decided that matching the historic windows of the adjacent house is appropriate. However, there are no detailed window drawings provided. Details of the adjacent windows, including the wide beaded central mullion, should be matched. We do not support the applicant's proposal to install a penthouse level roof deck with railings visible from the street. This will be a single-family house with a 30-foot rear yard, a rear balcony on the parlor floor, and a roof terrace at the penthouse. We don't think it's an undue hardship to require the front railing to be set back as far as DOB regulations will allow, 6 feet. We believe this will eliminate all visibility of the railing. We also do not support the applicant's proposal to raise the roof at the 3rd floor rear facade. As noted before, 180 and 182 were built as a pair. The photos and drawings show that they both retain their historic rear roof line and 3rd floor window openings. These are significant historic features. They must remain intact. Thank you, Commissioners.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds HDC finds this proposal to be largely appropriate, but we feel certain items need adjustment and further refinement. HDC supports lengthening the parlor floor windows on the front facade, but we find the 4/4 muntins inappropriate. Although the project is copying the neighboring house, we believe the correct muntin configuration for this would be 6/9. While HDC typically objects to 2nd floor rear yard full width extensions, we understand that this building is already flanked by 3-story rear yard additions, which makes this one appropriate. The proposed change to the top floor of the rear wall, however, is not appropriate because the original condition is extant at that top floor, and it currently aligns with its neighbor to one side. It should be preserved. There are other ways for the applicant to resolve the ceiling height issue and maintain the existing back wall and cornice, which we encourage the applicant to pursue. Finally, the rooftop bulkhead should be pulled back further from the rear wall. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that. I think it's not definitely. I don't think it's, yeah. Yeah, it was not very. Sorry. I know. Yeah, my. Yes, yeah. We want to pause. Yeah. Okay. We're ready to start like that.
Okay, so I apologize for that. We seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties. So Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council, I'm going to promote you to panelist right now. We did not receive, we were unable to hear your testimony. So if you could please repeat your testimony. I promoted you to panelist. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have a minute to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, commissioners. Can you hear me now? Yes. Fabulous. Okay. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this proposal to be largely appropriate, but we feel certain items need adjustment and refinement. HDC supports lengthening the parlor floor windows on the front facade, but we find the 4/4 muntin configuration inappropriate. Although the project is copying the neighboring house, we believe the correct muntin configuration for this would be 6/9. While HDC typically objects to second floor rear yard flow width extensions, we understand that this building is already flanked by 3-story rear yard additions, which makes this one appropriate. The proposed change to the top floor of the rear wall, however, is not appropriate because the original condition is extant at that top floor and it currently aligns with its neighbor to one side. It should be preserved. There are other ways for the applicant to resolve the ceiling height issue and maintain the existing back wall and cornice, which we encourage the applicant to pursue. Finally, the rooftop bulkhead should be pulled back further from the rear wall. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I am looking through our attendees just now, and I do not see any further hands raised for this item. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval of the modifications of the chimney, the stair bulkhead, the mechanical screen, and the addition of the elevator bulkhead and introduction of the historic detail to the windows on the rear facade, and denial of the brick infill of the third floor window, that the window be preserved and an interior solution be devised to mask the elevator shaft. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to ask you if you'd like to respond to the comments.
Yeah, the one comment on the front windows, we do propose to match the mutton detail and the mullion detail on 182 Waverly. Exactly. And then in terms of the elevator, I think there's a lot of benefits to elevators in these townhouse type properties in terms of aging in place and being able to fully utilize your house from, the bottom floor to the top floor and the roof outdoor space. So I think having the benefit of that gives some reason for the elevator going all the way up to the roof. And if, I don't know, also just aligning with 176, 178 Waverly Place, having the cornice at the rear facade divides the bulkhead from the third floor historic facade and the different materiality, I think gives it enough separation so you don't see it as coplanar.
Okay, and just on the elevator again, do the stairs have to be the length that they are to get a reasonable to be able to go on the step height? Okay.
And right now it's almost on the maximum ratio, like the steepness of the stair. So it can't get much shallower.
Okay. And on the rear, where you're proposing to raise it to align with the rear facades that have been raised on the other two buildings, you are proposing to change those windows both in location and in shape. And had you thought about retaining the fenestration pattern and just making it taller, the windows, making the windows taller?
Yeah, the reason they're set in a little bit from the existing locations is because there's new steel structure going up in the corners of the building. So they can't be at the same exact width that they currently are. And they could be shorter, but in proportionally with the raised rear facade, it seemed to elongate them, but you can't
keep them in the same place.
Right. In plan, we can't because there's new steel columns going in the corners of the building. So they have to be set in a little bit, which I think 176, 178 ran into the same condition because you can see that they're also further in from the corner than 182.
Commissioners, any questions? All right, we'll move to our discussion. Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Say something.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. There are a number of components to discuss here on the front facade. We're looking at lengthening the parlor floor windows. One of those windows already has a cut below it. So that some of that fabric has already been removed and they are proposing to lengthen drop the sills, lengthen the windows to match some of the other lengthened windows on this street and in the row, and proposing a window, I think it was a 4/6 with a wide vertical muntin and a bead in it, which is replicating a typical historic window in buildings in this district. And then at the rear facade, they're proposing a rear yard addition that is less steep than the existing and would match the height of the adjacent rear yard additions proposing to raise the height of the remaining rear wall and realign the windows, and then constructing a rooftop addition railing and extending the flues. Rooftop addition, as we've discussed, sits on the close to the rear facade. And the railing in pieces of the bulkhead are minimally visible from various viewpoints, but the railing is visible directly over the front facade, I gather a little. Okay, so we'll begin our discussion. So we have the front, the rear, and the roof. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this one?
Okay. So let me see if I can go through these. The windows on the front, rolling the windows, I think is fine. There's already the one with the air conditioner there that matching the fenestration of the adjacent building is fine. The railing at the front on the roof, I pull it back a few feet so it was not visible from across the street. The rear yard renovation and change, I think, is fine. The elevator bulkhead, I think there are two choices here. Either not take the elevator to the roof or reconfigure and pull it in at least a foot or two. And I think that covers everything.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I think that similarly, I also noticed that there's a comment about masonry openings at the top floor, so that's an additional condition.
Yeah, I think she explained why they weren't able to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Vice Chair Bland?
Basically, ditto. I think the problem of the elevator which then contribute to a problem. Saying that we're playing almost with the that's our problem. With problem, unfortunately, is to figure out how to work it out. Not everybody. You told us realize how I can't really, but I can't really wish it like this. So something's got to give.
Commissioner Lutfi? I'm in agreement. Commissioner Chen?
Front window lowering's fine. Agreed to push the railing back. On the back facade, the only thing I would add is that typically we really try to protect the upper floor windows. And my understanding is 178 to the right of this view was altered prior to designation. So I'm feeling like we should protect the upper floor.
Yeah, and I think it's actually, this axon only shows two of the buildings. There's a fourth building in row. So both of those have been extended, and one has a. It looks like something. Did we improve it? Was it prior? But I think it was prior to designation, right?
I mean, the commission did review and approve the project next door, which encompassed actually two row houses, but those top floors had already been raised and all the openings altered prior to that project and prior to designation, I'm pretty sure.
So when I look at this view on the left, I want it to be like 182, not like 178.
And I think we've done a few different things.
Yeah.
This is part of a grouping of 4, and we have really maintained short attic level, top floor level, when the whole row is really intact and there's legibility. Where it's been sort of half and half, I think we've done it at both
ways.
And
okay.
And so that's sort of where we are. So that's not to say you should change your opinion, but just one.
No, but I want precedent to at least be I want to be consistent. And I do think that makes a difference. If we've allowed that to happen, I can see the challenge because it's a 5-foot change ceiling height on that slope. But in agreement with my fellow commissioners that the bulkhead lining up with the top floor is absolutely not acceptable. So they need to look at the planning.
Commissioner Master.
I'm in agreement with Commissioner Ginsburg's comments.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Also agree.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Me too. Although I do find the revelation that Stephen spoke about to be significant. And I would say that in the past, I think we can solve two birds with one stone in a way. If we're going to have them push back the bulkhead, the typical 3 feet, which I think is the standard dimension, which I think we should hold to here, or to align with the addition to the right, then you can extend it up with windows for the lower floor, albeit set back a little bit, and then keep it going to the bulkhead with the elevator as per Mark.
So just explain that. So keep the rear wall where it is and some.
Yeah, like do a setback. Like we've done in this situation that we've done in the past is either do a dormer, do a north light, do something that kind of like a mansard that kind of, all of which would be fine, I think. And we can do that with staff as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Just one note on that. I'm not sure it's always the case, but in this case, because they had proposing a door to access the roof terrace of the addition, that's not something that's as easily accomplished with that sort of pinch roof that springs from it, because there's not enough wall to put in a typical.
And I think if you do, what we've seen in the past is when they do that mansard and north light detail, is they raise the roof all the way along, but it's just that the last 3 feet are sloped. You go flat angle, like a mansard, and you would raise it or you leave the cornice line at the same height, or the windows at the same height.
But your door, you won't have the head height to get out of the window onto the door.
Oh, yes,
Onto the terrace.
I see. That's true. It's kind of short.
Windows are there, eyes.
So, I don't know, maybe raise it on the right side or it would blend in with the other one. I don't know. I mean, that's a hard one. I don't have an easy answer on that one.
All right. But let's see, Commissioner Chapin, you want to add?
Yeah, okay, so in the matter of the railing, I think it should move back. The windows on the front are okay. I think that the height of the addition and the extent of the addition generally in the rear are appropriate. I was trying to understand, had a little difficulty hearing because the, sound quality occasionally. Isn't the building adjacent to it, doesn't it have the original, don't they both have an original pitch roof at the current moment and original, small windows on the top floor?
Yes, so for 2 of the 4 houses in the row, 2 have been raised to create a taller ceiling height and taller rear wall. And 2, one of which is this application, retain a more, it's not a pitch roof really, it's like a slope roof that slopes from front to.
So I did understand properly then. So, but the others were raised prior to designation, or we approved raising them?
In this case, they were prior to designation.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I think obviously sometimes we're more concerned about roofs with even earlier buildings, but it seems to me that this pair, it troubles me, to see the pitch being changed and the removal of those windows. And, I would hope that they could work around that in some way. And I understand it creates problems, with the design of the rooftop addition. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with the rooftop addition. And the bulkhead I can live with, though, so I really, I don't think they should change the pitch and take the top floor windows on the rear off.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so I think, and I hear the concerns about that top floor, and again, we have, we have had, struggled with it in the past and have sometimes had people just raise the roof behind it. I do think in this case, we have 7 commissioners who can support it as proposed. So do that, but we can encourage the applicant to continue to think about ways to deal with that. But the condition of the approval would be that the railing at the front facade would have to be set back and the elevator bulkhead would have to be set back as well, either by reconfiguring the stairs or not bringing it to the roof. So
The bulkhead will be pushed back.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
With regards to LPC 24-02998, 180 Waverly Place, Greenwich Village Historic District. A Greek Revival style townhouse, row house built in 1839. Application is to replace windows, construct rooftop and rear yard addition, and alter the rear facade. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural historic character of the Greenwich Village Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the lengthening of the parlor floor windows at Waverly Place facade will be in keeping with historic alterations to parlor floor windows found at the building next door and at other buildings in the district of this type, style, and age over time, and will incorporate the existing HVAC cut and only remove a limited amount of plain brickwork and brownstone sills. That the proposed black finished wood floor double hung windows with articulated center buttons will be consistent with the configuration, operation, and detail of historic windows often found at parlor floor windows of mid-19th century buildings of this type and age, along with the proposed decorative ironwork will harmonize with the building and the roads. That the demolition of the rear yard addition and construction of the new addition will not damage or eliminate significant architectural features. That the proposed rear yard addition will not be visible from a public thoroughfare. That the proposed rear yard addition will project into the rear yard less than the existing rear yard addition to be demolished and will be consistent with the height and projections of existing rear yard additions at the row and will not eliminate the presence of a rear yard or diminish a central green space. That the proposed design and materiality of the rear yard addition featuring red brick and black finished metal windows in punched masonry openings will be in keeping with the residential character and scale of the building. The other rear facades in the row have been rebuilt and raised, and the top floor of the rear facade will be reconstructed in its existing plane, aligning with the other rear facade in the row, raised to match the height of the neighboring reconstructed rear facade. Therefore, the work will not disrupt a uniform condition of the rear facade in the row. That the rooftop addition and gray finish HVAC enclosure will only be visible from limited vantage points in the context of taller buildings and other rooftop accretions. That the simple design and typical materials of the rooftop addition featuring gray stucco cladding, mechanical screening, metal windows and doors will be in keeping with the character of other rooftop accretions within the historic district and will have a discrete presence within the roofscape. That the raised chimney flues, while seen over the primary facade, will be seen within the context of other visible flues, will feature a neutral finish and will not draw attention to themselves, and that the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the Greenwich Village Historic District. However, that the railing in front of the roof will be visible from directly across the street. That the proposed rear of the rooftop addition is only minimally set back from the roof facade of the house, diminishing the sense of the building's original massing and its relationship to the road. Therefore, I recommend that the roof railing be set back to eliminate the visibility from directly across the street, and that the roof facade of the rooftop addition be set back to align with the neighboring rooftop addition to maintain a uniform sense of massing and consistent cornice line in the row or low. and that the applicant work with the staff to resolve these issues.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Brand. Commissioner Chopin,
Right.
Commissioner Chen, Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Winsberg, Commissioner Goldblum, no. Commissioner Jefferson, Commissioner Ledford, Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and 2 opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. And we'll move to the next item.
All right, next item is public hearing item number 6. LPC 24-03888. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 530, lot 9, 3 Great Jones Street in the NoHo Historic District. This is a Greek revival style residence with alterations. There's built in 1844 to 45. The application is to modify and enlarge window openings and install new window in.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ostap Vulikevich. I'm the architect for this project. It is a simple window modification for the rear apartment at 3 Great Jones, which is in the NoHo Historic District. This is a plot plan showing the property. So the unique thing about this property is it faces Great Jones Street and it has a side facade facing Shingle and Alley. These are designation photos from 1999. 1940 tax photo and contemporary photo from last fall. We did view studies of the alley facade and we tried as hard as we could to get the best shot of the windows in question. And the middle shot is the best we could do in terms of trying to see the windows. The alley is actually closed off behind the gate, so the public has no access to this alley currently. This is a photo composite of the alley facade. And the subject property and the proposed area of work. We're looking at these 3 openings and modifying these openings. The opposite facade facing the alley. And one thing to note is that there is a large opening that was modified relatively recently in Taylor. Drawing of the elevation. We are going to show the proposed window and the extent of modification. So one thing to note is that there are without existing lintels that have been rectangle in the lower level. You can see there's no down highlighted there. What we're proposing is to combine these 2 windows horizontally and extend them downward. And then for this window, we did it with a single light. That's shown. Both windows will be steel frame hooks windows and the configurations that are divided by forward green fixed above a header central with 2 casements and a central fixed line. And then the individual window would be without conditions. So the window and relationship platform, third wall. That goes and the lower field detail sidewalk. I will that could be community board public hearing a different version of the window.
I think a panel is lighting panel below and was not approved. So we made modifications based on our suggestions to be more responsive for this implementation.
Right. Commissioners, do we have questions on this one? Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
The windows do not look like they have a thermal break, and I know Hoops makes windows with a thermal break. Am I missing something?
The residents considered so it do not have a thermal break.
What we're trying to get that.
All right, any other questions? Okay, let's see if we have public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I will turn it over to Gregory Collin to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Powell. We have a few hands raised in the attendees list right now. The first person we'll be hearing from is John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. We have no objection to combining and enlarging the masonry openings. This is appropriate here for 3 reasons. It's a secondary facade. It has a somewhat random and utilitarian arrangement of openings. And this area was previously altered by bricking up 2 basement windows. We urge that stone, instead of a bent metal header, cover the horizontal structural steel support in a large window. This would recall the historic basement window lintels. Perhaps this feature should be lowered within the opening to better recall the location of these windows. And finally, the sash configuration of the smaller window should remain 1/1. That is the predominant type of window on this facade. Introducing yet another window type, a large single light casement, is not appropriate. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state me for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC supports the widening of these masonry openings, but feels that the windows themselves should relate compositionally and typologically more to the existing windows. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Richard Moses, representing Lesby. Richard Moses, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Richard Moses from the Lower East Side Preservation Initiative, also known as LSP. LSP has no objection to the proposed masonry opening enlargement at the building's rear facade. As the alley appears to be private property and the work at an undeveloped rear facade will incorporate existing openings and will be only minimally visible from a public thoroughfare, we believe that this alteration will not detract from the building's protected architectural features. We do agree that the single pane window should be a 1/1 window to correspond with the other windows on the facade and really on the street as well. Thank you very much.
I am looking through the attendees list now, and I do not see any further hand raised. So I will note that Manhattan Community 2 recommends denial of the application as totally lacking in any historical reference, and because it necessitates the removal of a considerable amount of historic material and does great damage to the historic condition of the building. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you. Would you like to respond to any of the comments that we've heard? Okay, and I know you said you revised the proposal after the community board. All right, and I think the page that has the view from Great Jones Street, I think is page, I don't know if it's a page number, page 8, 6 maybe, I guess. And it seems like this is a very oblique view, and I'm wondering if you even see the window configurations in this view when you look in. And I don't, Roberto, maybe if you've been to the site, you can share your sort of experience, visibility.
Where the windows are, and you're around this area here, which may be difficult to understand the net vision of or the configuration of the window given the setback of the window to the brick side.
Commissioner Goldblum?
The windows aren't set back. Is there a reason for that? Are the other windows actually flush with the brick?
I believe they are. I mean, they're not. I measured them to the footage, but they're not inset. They are actually down.
It's like the frames are kind of flush with the brick. Like there's no sill condition. You couldn't put a wood can on the windowsill or something like that.
Usually the brick returns,
Right, usually two or 3 inches. That's right, because the detail was a flush detail.
Right.
And that is being done in order to differentiate it from the existing windows, or because it looks from the picture like they are recessed in the normal way.
Yeah, I mean, we could set it 2 inches. It's fine.
Super, thanks.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Jeffers.
No, that's the other kind of driver of this modification is it's actually a double height space behind there. It's a 17 or 18 foot ceiling height. So the existing windows, they're weirdly like out of reach. They're sort of floating in the upper part of the wall and we can't even access them. So we want to bring the windows down so that they're actually more big in scale and sort of they can open them and use them for the limitations.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioners, any final questions? Yep, let's move to close the hearing. Commissioner Levy, would you make a motion to close the hearing? So, thank you. Commissioner Goldman, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed, and as has been presented, Shinbone Alley is a private alley and has a gate on it. And we are looking at alterations to the masonry opening on the rear facade of the building that and the rear faces Great Jones, Shinbone Alley, and is obliquely visible from Great Jones Street. And so we're looking at enlarging the window openings, then installing these particular windows. Commissioner Master, would you like to start this one?
Sure. Yeah, I think this is appropriate. You know, as they've mentioned, as some of the testimony has mentioned, you know, these openings face a secondary facade, really a private alley. And as we saw in the thoroughfare, it's very difficult to see at all. And I think it's reasonable to open up the window openings. I think that across the alley, we have an example of a precedent of another building that has done it. I think it's reasonable. I think it's appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson.
This one took me too much time. I just in a pile. And then I thought the windows and aggregate into it. They just they're not keeping existing. And then I went back and into the windows and like, I changed my mind. This is fine.
Thanks. I think as long as the windows are set back, it's fine. The building itself has such a range of openings. It just, I don't know, I just love the space, just with the name, you just kind of see somebody getting whacked over the head in a blackjack in a black and white movie at night with a very dim light. You know, that messy facade kind of has that feeling.
Okay, Commissioner Ginsburg.
I think it's appropriate. I would encourage the applicant to look at thermally broken windows and work with staff that may make them all slightly wider.
Commissioner Chen.
That's very interesting, Sunday.
Vice Chair Bland,
Yeah, appropriate as long as the windows are pushed back 3 or 4 inches.
Commissioner Lutfi. Yeah, appropriate, I agree with setback and Mark's recommendation. Commissioner Shu
Appropriate with setback.
and Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I think this is a case of, it might be not the most appropriate feasible in the universe, but it is appropriate, so I could approve it. And I agree with the other commissioners with the setback.
Okay, all right, so I think we can make a motion to approve it with the condition that it be set back in the plane of typical windows on these facades. And they can continue to explore the thermal break. Okay.
In the matter of LPC 24-03888, 3 Great Jones Street, NoHo District, Greek Revival style residence with alterations built in 1844 to 45. Application is to modify and enlarge window openings and install new windows infill. The building style, scale, materials, and detail, the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the NoHo Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features. That the area of work is located on the Shinbone Alley facade, which has the design and presence of a secondary facade and faces onto a gated street and is only partially visible from Great Jones Street. That the proposed enlarged window opening will include a stone lintel, a metal spandrel, and a casement window assembly with proportions, details, and finish that are in keeping with the types of window changes that sometimes occurred on secondary facades of commercial and industrial buildings of this age and type. That there is preference for a larger window opening on a 2-story building across the alley. That the proposed single pane casement window will not diminish cohesive fenestration pattern on this facade, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural or historic character of the building historic district. That the window is set back slightly, and that the applicant would explore the use of thermal windows. All right. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
Carol? Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Aye. Commissioner Chopin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chan. Aye. Commissioner Chu. Aye. Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson. Aye. Commissioner Lutfi. Aye. Commissioner Nestor. Motion passes.
That's approved. Continue to work with Harold. We'll move on to the next item.
Next item is public hearing number 7, LPC 24-0425. For certificate of patent, block 629, lot 1, 670. This is a style factory building built in 1849, which in 1854 and circa 1884. Replace storefronts and paint the ground floor. Establish a master plan for the installation of painted signage, install marquees, replace storefront cornices, sills and lintels, install rooftop mechanical equipment and enlarge bulkheads, and remove an interior floor.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Cass Stackelberg, Pickens Grace Barton and Partners. I'm joined by Matt Moran, Vincent, Deputy Project Architect. And I will make a presentation, and I should mention that Judge Lorraine and Stephen Montero and Cora Engineering are on Zoom. They're the project structural engineers. If you have any questions about structural work that's being proposed, they will be able to answer questions. As Corey outlined, there's a broad scope of work that we're proposing for what was known as the Herring Building, named for Colonel Silas Herring, who a safe manufacturing business and operated that building from about the 1840s to the 1880s. This project involves a building line rehabilitation to make the buildings.
To bring the building into being code and bring forward uses for the building.
So the building is this triangular shaped building, sort of prominently located on a block down by 14th Street, Hudson Street, 9th Avenue, and 13th Street. It's in the Antelope Market Historic District, and it is relatively small in scale for what's directly around it, but it obviously has quite a prominent position in the streetscape and in the historic district. An overall view of the building, as I mentioned, there are 4 street elevations. The elevation on 14th Street is 1 bay wide, and then it has long elevations on Hudson Street, which you can see in the photo on the left, 9th Avenue, and then 14th Street. The building was actually constructed in 2 phases. The original portion of the building, the southern roughly 2/3 constructed in the 1840s, and then the northern third, the plow, in the 1850s. There was, as you'll see in the historic documentation, quite an animated structure, but over time it has sort of changed as many buildings in this district has changed based on the different uses that have taken place in the building. A few existing photographs, just to give you a sense of the current elevations. These are the 3 larger elevations, Hudson, 9th Avenue, and 13th Street. Left to right, along the 9th Avenue elevation, you can see on the far left margin, there is street furniture across the base, making the base of the building difficult to see, but you can see the upper floors, brick masonry, sandstone lintels and sills, which are in quite poor condition. And then the cornice, which dates, we think, from about the 1880s, on 9th Avenue has been stripped off and is part of this overall project that will be restored. The 13th Street elevation in the middle was a long restaurant sort of flue and runs up that elevation, and then a painted base with painted signage currently across the ground floor. And then the Hudson Street elevation on the right side of the photograph. The cornice remains on the 14th, 13th, and Hudson Street sides and will serve as a model for the restoration of the cornice on the 9th Avenue side. And you can see across the base of the Hudson Street elevation sort of the variety of conditions, painted ground floor infill bays, lots of conduit, air conditioning units, etc. An overall view of the building on the left and a rendered view on the right, giving you a sense of the overall scope of the project. As I mentioned, there's an extensive scope of repair and restoration work across all street facades. That does include the restoration of the cornice on the 9th Avenue side, as well as extensive brick masonry and lintel and sill restoration. At the base, we're proposing to remove the non-historic storefront infill in place of a new infill, modifying select openings by removing in a select number of days, particularly on the 9th Avenue side, to create entries and storefronts, reframing the lower floor of the building to create a double height space at the base of the building, so taking out the second floor slab, introducing painted signage or reintroducing painted signage on the spandrels on the upper floors, with painted signage across the building's base, and then finally at the roof, a code-compliant elevator does not exist today, and introducing new HVAC equipment to serve the entire building. The overall project really is intended to embrace the district's long history of continued and varied changes of use, particularly as a place of dwelling, industry, and commerce. And the goal has been to bring the building back in a restorative manner, but to bring new life to it, and of course maintain this sort of iconic triangular form of the building in its prominent location in the district. So historic photographs, this is the earliest photo that we've been able to locate of the building from the 1850s, when the building was originally the Herrick Safe Company. And this was the building's original form. That's 13th Street, West 13th Street here on Hudson Street. So you can see the building occupied about half or 2/3 of the block, with a shorter building to the north. And the entire upper floor, all the spandrels that appeared on the top floor, all were painted for signage related to the operation that was taking place inside the building. The detailed photo on the right, I think, is significant on a couple of levels. One, it just illustrates the way the base of the building was treated with this open alleyway, but also each of the entries was up 3 risers, and those are now gone, as is the alleyway. But I think it's significant to note that one enters this building now at grade. So it seems that the whole ground floor has already been reframed, so they have already done a certain degree of structural interventions in the building. You can also see that the building has very animated quality with the painted signage. These multi-light windows, a very different feeling than the building has today.
The next earliest photo we can find is from the 1910s. This is a view on the left looking up north of 9th Avenue, and that's just a detailed view of that building. And the Historic District Destination for Linfield does a great job of itemizing all the different tenants that were in these buildings. And what's fascinating is just reading, particularly related to the market use of the district, but reading particularly for this building, this amazing collection of tenants and occupants and the changing sort of way that this building was used. So from the 1850s to the 1880s, it was a safe manufacturing company. But beginning in the late 1880s, the building was sold and it became a store and loft building. And so by the 1910s, the tenancy of the building was made up of restaurants, grocers, suppliers of butter, eggs, and cheese. So related to the market use that existed in the building. And you can see in this photograph a restaurant down in the corner, but also the way the painted signage was used very early on at the base of the building with the piers painted and the signage on top of that. And there's panel signs and signs in the window. In the 1920s, the building seems to have taken on a slightly different tendency. You can just, there's a sign up here that calls out the elite metal company. So fewer market-related uses, but now metal fabricators, obviously a barber shop at the corner of 14th Street, push cart manufacturers, so a slightly different flavor for the operations that occurred in the building. But you can see, again, the sort of vibrancy of the base of the building, the signage, and even signage on the upper floors here on the 14th Street corner of the building. In the 1930s, this is now a view looking north at Hudson Street. So this is 13th Street and 9th Avenue. The tenancy of the building has changed yet again. There are market and restaurant supplies, but also trucking, sort of picking up on the presence of automobiles and the distribution of market-related products in the Gainesville market. So catering to trucking and motor repair and transport companies in the building. So you can also see across the base here, this entire corner was painted with signage painted onto the piers. I'll also just note in these early photographs, all the windows have been replaced by the long windows. And then fast forward to the 1980s and 90s, the entire building had been painted by this time. And again, the uses of the building had changed. Restaurants, clubs, and even some apartments on the upper floors. And you can see the condition of the building in the 1980s and 90s. And then around 2000, at the time of designation, the building, I think, was painted still in 2003, the envelope of the building, but you can see the conditions across the base of the building with the restaurants and bars that existed, roll-down gates, etc. A few of those photos, just to give you a sense of what the building looked like at the time of designation. And then finally, returning back to the existing condition, this is a view looking south on 9th Avenue. So again, I mentioned the street furniture. This is not cafe furniture associated with a restaurant. There's a line of that as well, but this is commission approved street furniture that's part of this whole plaza on 9th Avenue and 14th Street intersection. And then a view, obviously, the shaved corners that would be restored as part of the project. Some detailed photographs on the left, images of the lintels and sills. These are just two photographs. There are more photographs in the appendix. The sills almost entirely are delaminating. The flue cracks there are in very poor condition. Our assumption is that they will all need to be replaced. The sills similarly are delaminated. They're obviously laid differently than the lintels. They're laid with a horizontal bedding plane. The lintels are laid with a vertical bedding plane, so they're delaminated in different ways, but many of the lintels have also been replaced in wood, which you can see in the upper left. So lintels and sills we anticipate being replaced in their entirety. This corner of 13th Street and 9th Avenue is illustrating the removal of the cornice, and then the conditions at the base of the building. The brick masonry, the granite sill course and sandstone sill course, and then just the conditions of the brick masonry here on 13th Street, showing some of the conditions of the brick piers, lintel sills, and windows. Some overall views. This is 9th Avenue, an overall view, and some of the details you can see. Just the condition of the brick. There are altered openings with returns that have been pointed, with new infill brick, remnants of stucco and paint on the piers, and then this image here showing some of the painted signage that exists at the base of the building, similar to what is being proposed, and then some of the typical non-historic storefront infill that exists in the northern portion of the building. The Hudson Street elevation, again, just that sort of range of infill types and the varying conditions of that infill, left to right, some infill bays, brick infill, iron grills, non-historic, storefront infill. And you can see this bay and this bay, the lab grade entry that exists today across the ground floor. And then the 13th Street side of the building, again, the base of the building has been painted, and there is signage, painted signage over that base paint that serves the adjacent tenancy, similar to what is part of our proposal. Conduit, lighting, cameras, just these series of locations that will be removed and the masonry and metalwork restored. With that, I'll have Matt take you through the design presentation.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. As Kevin mentioned, I'm Matt Moran. I'm the senior deputy architect of record, and I'll be going through the proposal now. So just to recap kind of what Kaz had already mentioned, the kind of full scope of work. So starting from the bottom up, at the ground level, place the existing, or not replace, but reinstall new storefront infills at the existing openings, as well as leveraging some of the openings on both the south side, which is the 13th Street, and the 9th Avenue, which is the west facade. We're also looking to paint the entire ground floor, as well as adding kind of on top of and reusing the existing painted signage at the ground for both the retail tenants at the ground level and tenants above as well. Replacing that signage band and including new canopies over the entrances, and then moving up to the upper levels of the facade, general restoration of the brick, stone and windows, lintels, introducing new painted signage for the retail tenants at the ground level, the removal of a fire escape on the 9th Avenue side, and then moving it further to the rooftop and cornice level, restoring the existing cornice, painting it black, reconstructing the 9th Avenue elevation at the roof, introducing new skylights, general MEP upgrades, a new structural code compliant elevator bulkhead and stair bulkhead also code compliant, currently not code compliant. Yeah. So that's the full scope. Moving down to kind of the elevations to get an idea of the color story. On the left, we're looking at the existing conditions, and then on the right is our proposed, where you see the ground floor painted at charcoal gray, up until the level of the signage band, and then the general restoration and painted signage at the upper facade, and then the black painted at the cornice at the roof. And here we have the south elevation and that north most point of the building. Here's kind of a general look at the proposed materials. So the two tone painted brick, and then black metal for the cornice, windows, and then the new bulkhead cladding source semi-seam to match the existing bulkhead. Here's a ground floor existing conditions versus the proposed, where you kind of see the 9th Ave Plaza and how it relates to our building. On the left, you're seeing the existing condition with all of the storefront openings, and on the right is a combination of reusing the existing on the east elevation and partially on the south, and then the new storefront openings at the west 9th Ave elevation. Here you also see that the existing stair and elevator kind of enter directly off of the street. We're proposing enlarged openings to create some lobby spaces for those two entries, as well as the introduction of the new steel structure that will frame out the double height space for the ground floor. All this new steel can be tucked away behind the piers that are meant to remain. And here's some of the general detailing of the columns and the connections for that ground floor reinforcement. Moving on to the storefronts. So here's the kind of proposed scope of work for the storefronts. On the left is the existing condition. On the right, again, the new condition. For the east elevation, which is Hudson Street, we are reusing all of the existing openings, with the exception of the new entry for the stair and the northernmost corner of the building. We're proposing to enlarge those two. And then at the west elevation, removing every other brick pier to kind of take two elevations into, or two existing openings into one, creating enlarged storefront profiles throughout that facade. This is again kind of facing that public plaza on 9th Avenue. South elevation, a mix of both here. We're proposing to open up those currently infilled with CMU, open those back up and create new storefront openings. Here's a holistic look at all of the elevations together, a combination of the existing and new, or existing openings with the new openings, all with the new storefront infill. Zooming into the kind of 4 different versions of the storefront infill, here we have 2 existing openings with new infill. The top being kind of a full height where we have a spandrel panel at the base, the bottom being more of a window condition. These are kind of the 2 varying options of what is the existing condition. The left being the section for the top portion, the right section for the bottom, and then zooming on the mullion where we're looking to use a more contemporary profile, but still kind of have some bubbling and visual interest to kind of create a little bit more dynamic look with these profiles. The new condition, here we're looking at where we're proposing to combine 2 bays into one larger bay. Similar storefronts profile, just a larger condition where we have kind of structurally electronic glass. This is a detail for the enlarged or the new canopy over the enlarged entries. We're just extruded metal profile with glass paneling and pressed metal letters for signage at the front. That's good. A little bit of back and forth. We thought it was perhaps useful, particularly for some of the commissioners who have not seen many of the applications in this district, just to sort of see how these buildings, many of these buildings have evolved under commission review, but also even some prior to designation, because I think there's an interesting sort of pattern that has happened in many of these buildings in this district. Recognizing the sort of history of adaptive reuse of these buildings that is called out in the designation report, we thought it was useful to sort of highlight how these buildings, particularly at the ground plane, have evolved under designation. And in large part, both in terms of commission review, but even just the sort of designation changes, there have been a history of sort of moving toward greater transparency at the base of these buildings. So this is one of the first, perhaps one of the first C of A projects that the commission heard, I think, back in 2004 for the project that Diane Van Furstenberg brought forward on Washington and 14th Street. And so on the upper left is the building as it appeared at the time of designation, and the photo in the top middle color version of that, basically. And then this photo and this photo show the current conditions. And what was approved was basically the removal of the non-historic masonry infill at the base of the building, retaining the cast iron columns and creating these giant sheets of glass from the top of the opening down to the sidewalk to allow for maximum transparency. While we're looking to do something slightly different in terms of the removals, the goal is to sort of bring a new use to the base of these buildings. This building on Gainsbourg Street, smaller scale, but again, on the designation photo in the 1980s tax photo, this was a small scale market building with some loading bays and some smaller openings. And the current condition today with these large scale storefronts that did require and involve the removal of masonry on this Gainsbourg Street elevation. And then a collection of other photographs of some of the buildings in the district, just illustrating this point about transparency. Some of these are commission approved storefronts, these 2. And these 2, this is actually a commission approved new building where the goal was to have this sort of open base of the building with maximum transparency. And this building here, 29 9th Avenue, these changes in terms of the openings at the base of the building occurred just prior to designation, but we think is sort of relevant because of this effort to reinvigorate the base of these buildings for new uses and removal of simple unarticulated brick masonry as being perhaps an appropriate modification for these buildings. We want to continue on and just talk a bit about signage, because the other component obviously is, in addition to the changes at the storefront, are the introduction of painted signage at the base of the building, but also on the spandrels on the upper floors. And I think owing to the commercial nature of this district in particular, there's a long history of painted signage, wall signs on side elevations, but also primary elevations, street elevations throughout the district. So there's a collection here of both early 20th century images as well as later 20th century images, giving you a sense of the varying conditions here on Little West Wall Street and 9th Avenue, signage right on the face of the building, the smaller sort of row house scale building on the corner, as well as the wall sign on the return elevation. The Kelly building here directly across the street from the project site. This is on the north
the southwest corner of 14th Street and Ninth Avenue, with signage across the spandrels, and then down again on Gainsbourg Street, 55 Gainsbourg Street, which had wall signage or painted signage across each of the spandrels of this 5-story commercial building, and similar in scale and form, for that matter, to 675 Hudson. And then across the base of this slide, some of the ground floor signage are similar to what we're proposing, where the masonry is painted and then signage is painted over that, allowing for sort of easy changing signage as tendency changes. And then these smaller scale buildings here on 9th Avenue, just north of 14th Street, where the entire front facades were painted and signage was introduced in the spandrel. So I think the proposal that we're including in our application and sharing with you today is not only consistent with the building's history, but also consistent with the way signage has been treated in the district as a whole.
So moving back to our proposal, on the right, you'll see kind of the proposed scope of where new signage and the kind of reinstallation of existing signage will take place. So on the upper levels of the facade, we have the painted bands where we're denoting where there will be signage for the tenants at the ground floor, and then as well as painted signage at the ground floor piers, both in their existing locations and in some new locations at the building entries and corners. And same for the south and north elevations. So this is kind of the overall plan for the painted signage at the upper levels of the facade. Within those painted bands, we're calling for kind of 3 equally spaced portions of that to be specifically for the retail tenants at grade. This is not to be advertising signage. And then on the right here, you'll see the scope for the painted signage at the piers. Some of this is already existing. In the elevations, you can see where this is called for. Retail tenants will be located at the corners of the buildings, and then at the entries for the upper facades, there will be painted signage on the adjacent piers. So in the upper left, you have kind of a zoomed in view of what the painted signage at the entry piers would look like, as well as the pressed metal lettering on the canopies above. On the upper right is a planned view of where painted signage will be located at the ground floor. And then on the bottom, axonometric views of the building entries with painted signage and new canopies, and then the corners of the building where retail tenant signage will be located. And here are render mock-ups of just how that looks to scale. Obviously, the content is temporary, but this is the locations of the painted signage. Moving on to windows and masonry. So the scope for the entire facade is to kind of restore the existing masonry, specifically looking at the windows. We're looking to replace all the aluminum windows and the masonry and restore the sills and lintels to the original historic masonry brownstone. Currently, there's a lot of delamination on sills and lintels. Some of them have even been replaced in wood. So we're going to kind of restore all of that universally across the facades. And here's a view of some of the existing conditions on the south side, as well as an elevation highlighting that scope. Moving up to the roof. On the left is the existing condition. On the right is our proposed design. You'll see the enlarged elevator and stair bulkheads. The existing condition is not code compliant. So we're looking to just expand that to the minimum requirement in order to get a structure compliant elevator and a code compliant stair. Also using the existing dunnage on the roof for new mechanical upgrades. And then at the kind of planned north corner of the building, introducing new skylights that from the street level will not be visible. Here's a plan view of that. On the left, you can see the existing ductwork that is on the roof today. And on the right, the kind of combination of all of these new proposed bulkheads and ductwork. Here are some contextual examples of existing bulkheads throughout the district that are kind of right up against the building facade. Our bulkhead is in its existing condition. We're not proposing to relocate it, only to enlarge it. And here we're just kind of seeing how in other locations this is a common occurrence. Here is a plan and elevation of that enlarged elevator bulkhead. So on the left, you have the plan of the existing versus the new, and on the right, the elevation existing versus new, and what our standing seam bulkhead cladding would look like. Moving on to some digital mock-ups. Here we're rendering what that new bulkhead looks like, along with what the restoration of the cornice at the roof would look like. The left is the existing, right proposed. So this, I'm sorry, going back to this is the northwest corner on 9th Avenue. This is now the southwest corner on 9th Avenue. This is the northeast corner from Hudson Street. From this angle, you really don't see any of the proposed new design. You'll see a little bit of the new equipment on the dunnage, but the bulkhead is hidden from this angle. Same from here, you're only seeing the new MEP upgrades, but not any of the enlarged bulkhead. And this is just a side-by-side showing the physical mock-up that we did of the bulkhead compared to our digital rendering, just kind of show the accuracy and ultimately what that would look like. These are all from about the same angles here again, southwest corner, the orange sticks being the bulkhead framing. Again, from the Hudson Street, you really don't see any of the proposed enlarged bulkhead. It's pretty much only the MEP upgrades. And then finally, just getting to some renderings that kind of show the full proposed scope of the work. Here from the Hudson Street elevation, you kind of see that plaza on 9th Avenue, or sorry, 9th Avenue elevation, that plaza at the ground level and our enlarged storefront openings, and then all of the work carrying up to the facade. Southwest corner. And then from Hudson Street. And I will leave that here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, commissioners, do you have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Lutfi.
The first question is, what's the use going to be above the ground floor commercial?
Above the ground floor is office space.
So the whole building's going to be office?
Yes.
And then, but the signage is above the ground floor is going to be connected to whatever the retail is. And how many retail tenants? I know the market determines exactly what the mix is at any given time, but how many retail tenants, based on how you've laid it out, are you expecting, and how many doors?
So it would be one maximum two. There are currently there's two planned locations for the retail space, and there's two locations to enter the ground floor as well.
So one or two at the base, one or two retail tenants at the base. And then, so, and they're going to be retail, they're not going to be restaurant.
I don't think we can say that for sure.
Yeah.
But the goal is retail.
And I just was wondering, what's the square footage total at the base?
I do not have that off the top of my head.
I mean, approximate, it doesn't.
Give us a minute.
Okay, let me ask the next question. So if you're anticipating that there are going to be two retail tenants, I was just wondering why you might need all that retail signage on the upper floors of the building.
I'll take it, but I think the real driver of this is just the fact that the building has basically 3 street elevations, and so you come at this building from very different angles. So you're coming to the district from the east, you're walking across 13th Street, or you're in the district and you're seeing the building as you walk up 9th Avenue, or from, let's say, from Hudson River Park. So you see this building in many different ways. So the idea is, if you just had it on Hudson Street, you wouldn't see anything on 9th Avenue. So I think the goal is to have some signage on each elevation.
Okay, Commissioner Chu?
At the base of the building, had you ever explored cleaning the existing brick and letting it be the existing brick at the ground floor and not paint it black?
Just stand here, so just make sure. We did look at that. The condition of the underlying brick is pretty rough. There have been openings that have been infilled and returns that have been filled with differing bricks and different mortar.
So the goal was to have something a little bit sort of cleaner in appearance. And then this also allows for very flexible sort of pedestrian level signage. Clearly the signage is being handled in two manners. There's sort of more of a street scale signage on the upper floors, and then the pedestrian scale sort of, directing people as to what entry is serving what, whether it's a building entry or retail entry. So the painting sort of covers up a lot of previous sins, but it also allows for signage for the ground floor tenancy and the building address information to be sort of changeable in a way that doesn't impact or physically impact the masonry itself. So there's sort of two considerations as to why we're proposing the painted signage.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Yeah, I have two questions. What is this to the top of the roof?
That's an existing sign. It's an existing sign, a billboard sign that's been there since.
It's been a lot of time. The second question, does the signage add to the building, you think? Or is the signage does it add to the form of the building, you think?
Does it add to the building? I think it reanimates the building in a way that, it was a very animated building, as you can see in the early photographs. So I think it does reanimate it. Obviously, it serves a real function for the tenants, the retail tenants who will be occupying the base of the building.
The third question, the fire escapes, the two of them, right? What's that?
There's three existing, two of them belong like that, and there's being moved.
Thank you.
And they're utilitarian, they're not decorative, just very simple ironwork.
All right, and I know another aspect that was calendared was the removal of interior floor. Is that for the entire length of the building?
Yes, so that's right. So the second floor, obviously right around the core, it remains, but because of the ceiling heights, the desire is to have a double height space at the lower level of the building.
Okay.
Just completely returned, the ground floor is approximately 6,000 square feet. So answer that question.
Okay.
I might also clarify one thing that we said. I think we said we were going to replace the lintels and sills with brownstone. The proposal is actually do it in cast stone to match the brownstone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if you have any public testimony. Yes. Please come up to the podium and state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Sandy Brown. I've been a tenant of this building just shy of 40 years. I'm on what they call the fourth floor, which is really the third floor. I'm still a tenant of this building. Can all this happen while I'm living there? Because I'm living there and I have half the floor.
Well, I'm not sure that that's not a privy, but also I'm not sure that we can answer the question. Maybe the applicants can address that afterwards, after we take all testimony.
It just, they said that it was all commercial and it's not.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak on this item? Okay, we're going to turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carl. We have a couple of hand raised on the attendee list. The first we'll be hearing from is Chloe Gregoire from the Village Preservation. Chloe Gregoire, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good day, Commissioners. My name is Chloe Gregoire, and I'm speaking on behalf of Village Preservation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. The Triangle Building is an iconic landmark of the Gansevoort Market Historic District, and we fear that the overall effect of this proposal would diminish its original character. Regarding the changes to the storefronts, the south and east facades appear to have possibly had wider openings historically, and as such, we can support some of the proposed modifications. However, the modified openings should be designed to better align with the rhythm of fenestration of the upper floors. Far too much historic fabric is proposed for removal at the ground floor of the 9th Avenue facade, and the proposed wide storefronts there are entirely out of character with this facade's historic design. the cumulative effect of this proposed signage is too great and far exceeds the amount of signage the building would have historically had. Though there were painted horizontal sign bands present at each floor historically, their reintroduction appears too modern. If some iteration of the painted signage is to be approved at upper floors, we suggest that the rooftop billboard be removed, as the presence of both of these types of signage would overwhelm the building. We are in favor of the cornice repair and lintel and sill reinstallations and are pleased to see care given to this building's restoration. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and say your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society of New York. This multifaceted proposal for this very prominent building has some appropriate and some inappropriate elements. Restoration of the cornice is, of course, appropriate. The proposed painted signs, both the sign bands between floors and the plaque signs at the ground floor, have historic precedent on this building and on 19th century commercial buildings throughout the city. Unlike many more modern sign types, we believe this type of painted sign, limited to lettering and a narrow color palette, will contribute to and advance the appreciation of the historic character of the district. Some of us feel that in exchange for all this additional signage, the applicant should remove the non-historic and distracting rooftop billboard. The work proposed for the ground floor is much more problematic. This early commercial building is characterized by wide brick piers taking the upper floors down to the sidewalk. The show windows that fill the spaces between are large enough to perform their intended function. The proposed intervention includes far too extensive a loss of historic brick masonry and widening of show windows, completely changing the character of the building's base. We also object to the painting of the remaining brick piers. They should remain unpainted and match the brick above. Finally, the enlarged penthouse will be too visible and prominent. We urge exploration of different configurations and types of elevators to reduce the height and bulk of this addition. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I'm looking through our attendees list right now, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval of the masonry restoration, windows above the ground floor, signage at the ground floor, reproduced cornice, mechanical equipment in the elevator and bulkhead, denial of the modern steel ground floor window system, the building entrance canopies as being without historic reference, denial of the removal of piers and historic material to enlarge the west show windows, which unacceptably compromise the integrity of the otherwise intact historic design of the building. Denial of the painted sign bands as asserting themselves in a way that transforms the building into a background for sign bands and transforms the vertical expression of the facades to a horizontal expression of alternating sign bands and the windows of each story, and that if modified versions of the proposed sign bands is proposed, that it come before that Community Board 2 for public hearing. And with that, I'll move back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you. So I'd like to ask if you would like to respond to the comments we've heard.
Yeah, I mean, first on the tendency of the building, our team has been sort of focusing on the base of the building and the envelope. So we'll absolutely talk to our client about the current tendency of the building and make sure that that is addressed properly. And I think just sort of to address a few things, I think focusing on the openings first, I think what's important to note is there are openings made on this elevation, which is Hudson Street and 2 on 13th Street, but the majority of the enlarged openings are happening on 9th Avenue. And I think we've tried to point out, and you can even see in this rendering, the base of of the building is largely obscured on 9th Avenue because of these large planters and the sort of street furniture that exists in this plaza. But the personality of the district and the building is very different on 9th Avenue. It's a very sort of energetic commercial part of the district with a lot of foot traffic and a lot of activity and a lot of retail presence. And so our proposal is to sort of tap into that. And that's why the focus of the enlarged openings is in that location. Again, underlying masonry too, as we tried to illustrate in the existing condition photographs, which I think goes to some of the points about signage, is in very rough shape, and obviously the entire building has been painted in its entirety historically. And the base of the building has been used for painted signage from the 19 teens forward. So in that way, we think that is appropriate, and we think the signage on the upper floors also, in its way of sort of animating the building and tying to the new retail use of the base, could be found appropriate as well. And then just finally, addressing the elevator bulkhead. Matt can speak to this, but the enlarged bulkhead is the smallest footprint and the height that code requires. This is really to provide a stretcher call, and the existing elevator is quite small. So this allows for code compliant use for all floors of the building.
All right, commissioners, any final questions? All right, let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Master, would you make a motion to close the hearing? So moved. And Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed, and there are a number of components here. At the ground floor, we have the modification to the openings to combine openings, installation of new black painted storefront infill, painting the base black, and installing 2 marquees and some signage at the ground floor. In the middle portion of the building, it includes the signage on the spandrels on the facade, the replacement of the cast stone lintels, the brownstone lintels with cast stone, and on the inside, removing the floor at between the first and second floor. And at the roof, we have the elevator bulkhead. Commissioner Goldberg, would you like to take this?
Sure.
One?
I think that the bulkhead is appropriate. I think it's modest and it's typical of this kind of building. I think that the restoration, of course, is fine. I think that the signage, although the applicant's shown that there has been evidence on at least one facade of extensive signage, I think that the evidence also showed to me that there is a very extensive history of the building without it. And so I think it would probably be okay with me to do this kind of extensive banding of signage on one facade. And I think that they could consider doing text on the brick on other facades, and that would still be appropriate. But I think that the reading of the building should try to capture, considering that it has this many facades, both conditions. I think that the painting kind of obscures the brickwork in a way. I think it'll probably cover those stars. Won't cover the stars.
So it's the banding more than the
right. Yeah, I think that the banding is fine, but I think it should really be restricted to one facade and stay off the corners. I think similarly on the base, the painting is fine, except for at the point and at the building entrance, the commercial lobby. There should be some vestige of the raw brick, because again, evidence shows that there was consistently raw brick there. So, and I think that on this facade where they've done a lot of removal, I think that they should modify that to reduce the amount of material that's removed. I think you can open more of the storefronts here if that is the nature of this facade as being one that's desirable from a retail perspective. And I don't think doing it in such a wholesale way is a good idea.
Okay, Commissioner Ginsburg.
So large part, I agree with Commissioner Goldblum. I think the elevator bulkhead is fine. We need to put in a stretcher elevator. The cornice replacement is fine. The signage is really interesting because the historic photos show it on 2 facades in the corner on what looks like 13th Street and 9th Avenue. And so I think at least on those 2 facades, the signage bands are fine. It may be on Hudson Street, you won't have it. The ground floor openings, I think they should try to minimize cutting of the historic fabric. If they need to do it in a few places, fine, but not wholesale. The restoration is good. And the painting of the base, I think Commissioner Graham's suggestion is a good one. And then I just have a general comment. This has always been a sort of industrial warehouse building. It has been messy. I am worried that this will make it too neat and too clean and too sanitized. And I would encourage the applicant, working with staff, to figure out how, as you work on this, like the signage is all the same bank, you know, some things to make it feel like it wasn't too sanitized.
And I thought Commissioner Goldblum's idea was kind of interesting and might help with that, is to have banding on one side, but just letters on the other side, right? Make it less branding. Commissioner Chen?
The floors, we make it sanitized. This is a strong sector of the city history. And I agree with the comments, and I think we should make the same comment as well about the basement brick. You know, there should be some remnant, some indication of what the history of this building is. I have no problem with it. It's logical. And I do agree with the comment that trying to minimize, you know, the wholesale enlargement on the base, but you know, only pick out what is necessary. Do not do who's going to do. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Vice Chair Brad.
And then, could you go back to the first two slides that we have? The very first two that we saw when we opened, they were paired. I thought. Sorry to take time, but it's gonna go slow. Or we could just slow, but that's fine. Love to lengthen the time of the hearing too late in the day.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, can you tell me what slide you're looking for again?
The very first, I think it was this, it was one slide that had two images, existing and proposed.
Just existing and proposed, okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's the opening.
It was the opening slides.
Number 6, Abby.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Andy. Sorry, everybody.
That's okay.
It took. No, keep going. No, well, it's just not going through.
It might be the next one. I'm just going back.
And what we're doing there, that one. Okay, now that we're taking all the time, I have to speak faster than I would have. To me, this shows a lot of what's wrong with this proposal, frankly. And you know, the banding, it's the banding that you first saw, and the banding completely alters the whole notion of what this building is about. And it also, for me, I think around this table, shows the tyranny of past photographs of signage. And if it's okay to do it again. And, you know, we don't know what the conditions were back in the city exactly then. It was completely unregulated. We wanted to do anything, we did it. A lot of great, sales owners and so forth. So I don't always agree that just because a building had signage all over it in the past that it's appropriate now. And I use this as an example, maybe one of the best I've seen in my time here at the commission. So I object to this strenuously, not just because of the signage, but because here the signage alters the whole reading of the building. So I reject this completely. Now, So in the ground, let me just start the ground floor. I think painting the brick down there is not right. The messiness, thank you, Commissioner Ginsburg, for bringing that up. We're trying to make this into some slick building, but it never was and shouldn't be now. And I think painting that just helps do that. And Cass, you're very eloquent in describing exactly what I thought should not be happening. We don't want it to be so slick that we can put signage on it more easily than we can just paint signs on brick. That's okay. Fix the brick. And the layering of all the changes over time, that's good to see, not bad to see, particularly in a district like this. Maybe other districts, we would want to change it up, but I think exposing all of this roughness and change in the layering is exactly what preservation of a building like this should be about. And the adaptive use of it to contemporary retail use, which I completely applaud and wish you good luck in doing. The rest of it I don't need to talk about. Really, I think there's some good things about the cornice, the bulkhead. All of these things are fine and been discussed already. But,
all right, and thoughts on the widening of the opening?
I'm okay with that. Actually, to make particularly on the Ninth Avenue facade, I think that is was it on the facade? I forgot. No, yeah, I think that's fine. In order to adaptively, I don't know if we're really adaptively reusing it, but trying to make a better retail environment, which is a good objective. And if that does it, I'm fine with that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Lutfi. I'm going to repeat a few things and add a few things. I love this building, and it's great that it's going to be, I'm just going to say, enhanced. And I also think it's great that, there's some care taken here to figure out how it could fit well into the current marketplace. So to that point, I would like to say that I think the cornice is great. I think the bulkhead is good. I happen to agree that there should be exposed brick at the base. I personally think in terms of the openings and just in terms of who the users are going to be, unless you have them in place, what a lot of applicants who are doing retail at the base have been coming to us with are I'm going to say sort of master plan options. If we get two users, then this is how we would like to open it. And this is where the entrances would be. And this is where the display windows would be. But if we need, because the marketplace is different and we are going to have a few more tenants, then this is how we would like to open the ground floor. And so right now, I feel like I can't respond to how much fabric is being taken off the base because we're not looking at it from a number of ways. And likewise, I think that there should be signage at the street level because that is, to start, that is where people, who are walking down the street see signage. And I don't really see that here so much. I think that's where the key signage should be. And above that, I'm going to say way too much signage here. And I don't think there should be a band. The band calls too much attention to itself. And I think you should figure out another way, as other applicants have, to put signage on this building so that it gives notice that a particular tenant is in here, but it's not, it's almost like flag-like, or it's just way too much. And I definitely think above the ground floor where there will already be signage, and there may even be signage in the window. I mean, I feel like you need to develop this whole thing further. That above the ground floor, there shouldn't be one more level.
And I don't think it should be, again, it depends on how many retailers there are, but I don't think it should be so many signs around the facade of the building. That's all.
Okay. Commissioner Chu?
So I love this building too, and I had the fortune to work right behind this for 20 years. And just looking at it, sorry for the Gansburg Hotel when that thing came in, but this building, to me, I agree actually completely with Commissioner Bland. My reaction is that the beauty of this building is the fact that it's a right triangle that is an island in the middle of this developed area. And I always see this building as an island. I walk around it on every side. So to me, it's a three-dimensional object. And I don't like the fact that it changes on the facades. I also have always felt that what's great about it is it's a simple brick facade with punches. And that field is what gives the field of windows in the brick facade of such a unique shape is what to me makes this a great building. And the horizontal bands, I agree, completely alter my feeling of its sense and its being. It completely changes its character. That's again my reaction. Maybe we're the only two that feel that strong, but I feel very strongly about it. I also don't think that it should be treated differently on the different facades. I think it should be the same. I think the cornice is fantastic. I love the fact that this building is being taken care of and being restored. I think that's great, and I applaud you for that. The cornice helps the accessibility, the elevator. I'm okay with all of that. I just think that, as some of the other commissioners have noted, it's excessive. And I wouldn't put the horizontal bands. I wouldn't do all the painting at the base. Let the signage actually be painted on the brick as it is and not on a colored brick. I think give it more character. And will give it a sense of that grit that it has always had back there. Anything else?
The combining of the openings.
Okay, on 9th Street where the windows, the openings got increased, I do feel, again, I think it's a combination of, if the brick were retained, that might be more open to the widening of the windows, but when they're painted dark and they're widened, I feel like they divorce the base from the upper portion of the building. That's not the way this building is. So I think that, again, it's an accumulation of moves that I think were too much together, and maybe the applicant could step back a little bit and simplify their approach. Also, if there's only 2 tenants, I don't know what all that signage is for.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Master.
So I'm a little bit torn. I was in complete agreement with Commissioner Goldwell. I thought that he was spot on. In terms of the painting on the facade, the band, maybe do one on one side and do something different on the other side. But Commissioner Bland and Commissioner Chu are so compelling. I don't know. I'm a little torn. So let me tackle some of the other things first. On 9th Avenue, in terms of making it more accessible for retail, yes, I'm very supportive of that, of creating more openings if that's important, especially when they said that 9th Avenue has a lot of foot traffic. I know how important that is. I think we do have to be a little sensitive if there are only 2 tenants and it's not completely necessary. I think we could be a little judicious. I think if you do have more tenants, and they do need the retail opening, I think you should try to accommodate them. The bulkhead, yes. Removing the second floor is fine. The cast and lintels, the cornice repair is good. The sign bans, I don't know. I could be convinced either way now. So I know that's not helpful, but I think Commissioner Bland and Commissioner, they were very compelling. And then I guess in terms of the black painted on the base, I think that Commissioner Goldblum, I think he had said, retain a little bit of the brick, as an homage to the history of the building. So I would agree with that.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson?
Of course. I do agree with Commissioner Bond and Commissioner Chu. I think the writing almost look modern to me. That's the whole building. And the letters and top, the letters on top of that was just too much for me. And I think the simplicity and the clarity of the building that's there now is just wonderful. And if they wanted to add signage, it could be added, but softer, not dominant like this is. I think we're adding for larger openings if required. I think the police makes sense. Anything else I'm making with the banding is
okay.
Okay.
And Commissioner Chopin.
Yeah, first I just had a question because several of the some of the testimony raised the billboard. Do we regulate the billboard?
We don't regulate. That's an existing that actually predates the designation of the district, and it's existing to remain.
So it's a grandfathered item in effect, or you might say. Okay, yeah, I didn't think we were we really were involved with it, but anyway. Okay, so first, I do think there's too much signage. I would be in favor of having one band on each side instead of three on the upper floors. And I think that there's too much removal of historic fabric, as others have said, at the base, and that they should have more of the piers continue to exist as original. And I prefer to see them in original brick, but if the condition really is an issue, I could accept painting of the piers on the ground floor. I do think that the bulkhead is okay, the elevator bulkhead, and the cornice, of course, is a fine addition. Is there anything I didn't cover, Sarah?
The one thing that actually nobody really spoke about were the marquees at the entrances. I think, if anyone has any thoughts on the marquees.
I think the signage at entrances is okay because it's limited. It's, a little dramatic, but it's a big building. So I was okay with the idea for the signage at the entrances of the, what do you call it? The retail.
Yeah, we're calling it.
Yeah, I'm having an issue. Yeah, where are we going right now?
Cass, if you know what slide that's on.
42 and 43.
42 and 43.
I could go back. Yeah, I got it on the other computer here. But I remember I remember those vertical things.
There are two marquees, one at each entrance on each facade.
Black metal frame project about 5 feet with a glass roof.
As I said, while it's somewhat dramatic, I think that it's appropriate to have it at the entrance to the retail establishments, and that I do think because it's a long facade that it is, I think it's appropriate.
Okay, and they're not very deep. Okay. All right, so I think, all right, unless anyone has an objection to it, you can probably move on.
I'm looking at the details. I think it's the next, or the previous page. Is there a detail? It seems like it's pretty minimal. It almost looks like it could have fit right in the opening, but it just a little bit goes over it. I wonder if it could just fit in the opening. That's my only comment.
About it also, if this is for the offices above, I don't really think it needs anything more than signage on the top of the marquee. I don't think it needs that signage on the sides.
Okay. All right, so I want to thank everybody for all of their comments. This was a lot of material to get through just because there were a lot of changes at each part of the building. So I want to thank the applicants for getting through it carefully and thoughtfully, and for commissioners to think through it all. So I think that there is a path forward here. I don't think we're going to be able to take an action today. We've had a lot of different suggestions about signage and paint and the window openings with some different opinions on that. But I think the sort of the essence of it is that just cumulatively it results in a change to the character of the building and is at odds with the character of the district, and that a rethinking of all of these components to sort of bring it back to something that the simplicity of the building, but also its relation to this district. And I think you can sort of work with all of the suggestions that you've heard and sort of pick the right ones and come back to us when you're ready. All right, thank you. So we're going to try to get through one more item. We are very behind schedule, so you'll read the last item into the record and do one more item.
I'll go ahead and do moving into the record now. That would have been public hearing item number 9, LPC 24-04601, 161 West 13th Street, Greenwich Village Historic District. Reading that into the record today to be presented at a future hearing. I see that no one, I believe, is in the hearing to testify, just in case, and that we don't have any hands raised for that item. So we'll in that matter and move to public hearing number 8 to close the day. LPC 24-00836, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 530, Lot 1, 670 Broadway, NoHo East Historic District. A Victorian Romanesque style store building designed by George E. Harney, building 1873 to 74, and the application is to construct a rooftop addition.
So 670. Appreciate your time. My name is Derek Zemer. I'm the architect presenting this project on behalf of 670 Broadway. I'll jump through to save you time overall, because I know it's been a long one. So it's in the NoHo Historic District, right in the center, also known as the Brooks Brothers Building. Old tax photo for reference. I'll skip all this. I'll probably address this either in the presentation or in questions, but it's an application for rooftop accessibility through an elevator and the addition of a penthouse structure. When the zoning acts on, the green is the penthouse addition, which is behind the zoning setback and within the non-visibility parameters. The yellow elevator is the proposed addition that we're here speaking about. On the roof plan, the elevator is to the right. It's along Shinbone Alley, so it's away from Bond Street and Broadway, but adjacent to the existing elevator bulkhead. In terms of visibility or sightline drawings, this is from Bond Street and the Broadway elevation as well. Section view on the top of the roof, just cutting to the 5th floor in the penthouse, illustrating the setbacks, line of sight, and overall heights. For visual reference, this is a rendering done by the aluminum storefront company doing the
penthouse addition, just for a reference on material. I disregard the furniture and the ground. It is not either, but it's, we took a little artistic license and adding some extra things in, but the aluminum overall is going to match the trims that are on the existing building and anything that's there, just in this slate gray. For general close-up material reference, this is the existing elevator bulkhead on the roof. So the two color palette we're using will be brick to match, and the aluminum in the gray at the top, which is in one of those better years. But the rooftop view of the mock-up that we put together, the contractor opted to use scaffolding for ease. It's also done in full height, but the penthouse is actually 3 feet lower. But for the purposes of putting it in, it was all in one unit. The visibility overall from the corner of Lafayette and Bond is, there's a close up there, as well as a rendered view of the proposed materiality of that addition. Further out in the mid block between Bond. Similar condition. Aligning with the visibility diagrams from the street, it is not visible. It's the obliques where caught up. It's a tiny position, kind of in front of that Starbucks on the corner. For context, this will just be similar installations throughout the area. This is 660 Broadway across the street. In terms of a side view, I kind of try to look at ones that had a step condition for where they must have added something in the past and present. We'll put it up on Great Jones, another stepped version. Up down the street on Bond. Further down Broadway. The 424 Broadway. It kind of illustrates the worst case scenario of extending an elevator. We were able to avoid with using the contemporary building code and changing our design based on the 2022 building conditions for rooftop accessibility. So we have a Lula elevator proposed versus a full-size extension. Just one more, right? A couple of blocks from here. Can jump to questions.
Any questions, commissioners? So? Oh, thank you. I switched it. Yes, Commissioner Chapin, please go ahead.
The rendering suggests, I was just wondering about the use. It looks more like it's, you're anticipating people sitting outside and dining or something, almost like it's a restaurant, or is that intended that most of the building is going to use that rooftop terrace? I just was curious about the use.
Sure. So the rooftop use with our building department alteration or all one application is for recreation use for the entire building for the majority. Penthouse addition is connected to the 5th floor tenant below, which is why they did it for the tenant inside. They put some furniture and then they just flooded the egress path and added a bunch of things that won't be there. Can disregard this. It will have some plantings and loose or fixed furniture for passive use, but not to the extent that this has. But at least it was a quick reference for me to have visually to show. It won't be visible, but of the penthouse structure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so really the views of the penthouse are the views that the outside views adjacent to the bulkhead where you see it. Right, you actually don't ever see this
penthouse addition is not visible,
Okay.
even with the mock-up, so they did build it to the full height just for their unit, and it was actually helpful to have it just so we knew, so.
It's really just the bulkhead.
The elevator is I guess, to the end, the little corner is still just the corner of the new elevator.
And the mass of the penthouse, the height of it, you're confident that that is, in fact, because the rendering shows, looks impossibly thin roof on that. I just hope it doesn't end up being taller than that.
Yeah, so
If you go back to your rendering, I know you said that the storefront folks rendered that. That wasn't. I just want to make sure that there's actually a constructible roof that isn't, it's not going to get much taller than this. This is in fact the height.
yeah, so they're capping this height, which will be 3.5 feet based on the sections below the elevator roof deck, or the elevator bulkhead, sorry.
Okay.
Which kind of, or 3.5 to 4 feet, which aligns with the existing elevator bulkhead in the section adjacent with the louver.
All right. Thank you.
It was a tight fit, but.
Okay. Other questions? And I'll note that there was no one present, so we'll turn to Gregory to see if we have any participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. If you would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand. Okay. Yes, I see that John Graham from Victorian Society in New York has raised his hand. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. The Victorian Society must oppose this installation. Our opposition is twofold. First, the proposed elevator would be located flush with the Shinbone Alley facade and thus will be extremely visible from the east, as is shown on board 13 and several others. This is unacceptable. Second, the applicants are not taking advantage of the flexibility a Lula elevator allows. Commissioners, for those who aren't familiar with this type of elevator, will note that a Lula is a limited use, limited application elevator with a small footprint, which is typically designed to travel a very short distance, usually 3 floors or less. The section on board 8 appears to show that this Lula will travel only 1 floor, from 5 to 6. 670 Broadway is a very large building whose footprint measures 86 feet by 130 feet. It has an open interior courtyard. The floor plan on board 5 shows that the new interior stair the applicant is proposing winds its way from floors 5 to 6 in a spacious open stairwell. We find it unbelievable that in such a large building, the applicant can't find a location for the installation of this small elevator that won't be so terribly visible. We urge that this application not be approved until a better solution is found. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Richard Moses, representing LSP. Richard Moses, I am promoting you to panelist right now. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Richard Moses from the Lower East Side Preservation Initiative, also known as LSP. LSP does not object to the proposed rooftop addition on this building. Based on the review of the architect's plans and the site mock-up, we believe that the work will not detract from the building's or historic district's protected architectural features due to its location, size, and facade materials. I do want to say that we don't want to completely discard what the Victorian Society has testified. So I just wanted to say what our take was on this subject. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised in the attendees list. So I will note for the record that we've had committee board 2 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carol.
All right, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to say in response to the comments we've heard?
Sure, just for the seeking an alternate location and function for the elevator. So this has been kind of a long process. I skipped the text at the front, but I put it in there. So aside from, we are using a Lula elevator to cover that distance, but since it is being provided for the use of the entire building, having it adjacent to the existing elevator was one of the ways we can use that exemption without using the tenant's floor space and expanding, or the other option was to extend the existing elevator as is in place up, which would be 18 to 21 feet taller than what's there. So a much more massive undertaking. In terms of locating anywhere else on the floor aside from that building, DLB concerned, we did a wood species test on the building for its columns and main girders to see if we could put this anywhere else in the building. Given the building's layout, there's two short span ways where our current elevator is located, where 2/3 of the building is kind of in a much larger span, which did not pass the wood species testing. So we did kind of resolve everything we could to this point. And basically, I guess I'm presenting the best case scenario that we can fall by between Department of Buildings, zoning, hopefully landmarks, and the tenants of the building as well.
Thank you. And commissioners, any final questions? Okay, so let's go ahead and make a motion to close the hearing. Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Thank you. And Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second? Motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed. And so this is a proposal to do this additional bulkhead, which is visible from some distances, and is an applicant has shown us in other in this district. There are other buildings that have bulkheads for elevators and other mechanical installations at the front of buildings, and whatever these are commercial and industrial type buildings. Has also explained limitations for the placement given building department requirements. So we'll begin our discussion, and also that this is a rule so that it needs to be adjacent to the existing bulkhead. I think you said, right? Okay. All right, Commissioner Chen, would you like to start this one?
Sure, because I agree with the testimonies. I think this is appropriate, and that this is a background in terms of context, and the only thing that's visible is really the bulkhead. The addition is not really visible, and we have up to many of these similar structures before.
All right, Commissioner Ginsburg.
I agree with
Commissioner Jefferson. Right, Commissioner Master. Appropriate. Commissioner Chu.
Appropriate.
Commissioner appropriate. All right. And Vice Chair Plans thumbs up. Commissioner Chopin.
Appropriate.
All right. So I think we're all in agreement. Commissioner Chen, would you make the motion?
Sure. In the matter of LPC 74-00-670 Broadway, NoHo, East Historic District. The application is to construct additions. I recommend approval, noting that the building scale, styles, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural historic factor in the historic district. That the proposed work in damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the penthouse portion of the proposed addition that contains occupiable space and the proposed rear bulkhead are set back from the facades and will not be visible from any public thoroughfare. That the proposed elevator bulkhead associated with the penthouse addition will be located immediately behind the main elevator bulkhead, which is already visible from the east along Bond Street. And over the primary facade from a limited vantage point on Broadway. Then the design and materiality of the proposed addition feature brick cladding of the bulkheads and metal and plastic walls. It depends on addition will be in keeping with a variety of materials found and rooftops functions within the historic district. That the brick cladding of the proposed elevator bulkhead will match the existing. Will match the adjacent existing bulkhead. And the expansion of the massing will not call undue attention to itself. And that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the historic district.
Thank you. And Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Brand.
Aye.
Commissioner Chilton. Commissioner Chilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson. Aye. Commissioner Levesey.
Aye.
And Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 9 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, that's approved. Thank you. Thank you, commissioners, for a very long day and your hard work today. And we have, as noted earlier, read the last item, which was item number 9 into the record, and we'll we'll put that on a future agenda and open that hearing up for future review and testimony. And with that, that concludes our day. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. And our next public hearing is February 13th.